At 11:50 p.m. on New Year's Eve, while all of New York pulses with anticipation, Elena Vale, the invisible assistant to one of the city's most powerful CEOs, sits trembling in her dark queen's apartment, wine glass shaking in her hand. Outside her door stands Dominic Rayner himself, tuxedo undone, breath visible in the cold, having abandoned a gala full of Manhattan's elite to cross the city for her. In 10 minutes, midnight will explode across the skyline. But right now, two people who've spent months pretending not to notice each other are about to shatter every rule they've lived by. If you want to see how far a single midnight kiss can change two lives, stay until the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Follow it. The apartment was too quiet. Elena Vale sat curled on her secondhand couch, knees pulled to her chest, cartoon penguins grinning stupidly across her pajama pants. The TV flickered, some rom-com she'd seen a dozen times, predictable and safe. Outside, the city roared. Laughter ricocheted off brick buildings. Car horns blared in rhythm with anticipation. Somewhere close, a group of drunk 20-somethings screamed the countdown, even though midnight was still an hour away. Inside, silence pressed against her eardrums like water. She lifted her wine glass. Cheap Merlot, the kind that came in a bottle with a screw cap. Her hand trembled slightly as she took a sip, and she hated herself for it. 29 years old, alone on New Year's Eve, again. The weight of it settled across her shoulders like wet wool. Her phone buzzed. Elena flinched, nearly spilling wine across her thrift store coffee table. She grabbed the phone, expecting her mother's annual guilt trip text, or maybe a mass message from some distant college acquaintance she hadn't spoken to in years. The name on the screen stopped her breath. Dominic Rayner, her boss. The CEO of Rayner Industries, the man whose calendar she managed, whose coffee she perfected, whose entire professional existence she orchestrated from the shadows, while he moved through boardrooms like gravity, had different rules for him. Dominic Rayner did not text her at 10:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Dominic Rayner did not text her at all. He emailed. Curt, precise instructions that she executed flawlessly because that was her job, to be invisible, efficient, and utterly replaceable. Her thumb hovered over the message. Still awake? 2 words. No context. No punctuation demanding urgency. Elena stared at the screen until it dimmed. Her heart kicked against her ribs in a rhythm that felt dangerously close to hope, and she crushed it immediately. This was a pocket dial. A mistake. He'd meant to text someone else, someone at the gala he was attending, someone who mattered. She should ignore it. She typed back, "Yes." The response came in seconds. "Me too. This party is unbearable." Elena read it 3 times, then a 4th. Her brain tried to supply reasonable explanations. He needed her to handle something, prepare documents for tomorrow, fix a scheduling conflict. But none of those explanations fit the tone, the casualness, the almost human quality of the words. "I thought CEOs loved galas," she typed, then immediately regretted it. Too familiar? Too flip. She was about to delete it when the message went through. Typing indicator. 3 dots pulsing. "I thought assistants loved New Year's Eve rom-coms." Elena's breath caught. She looked at her TV. The actress on screen was crying laughing in a wedding dress, obviously about to kiss the wrong guy. How did he... Lucky guess, his next message read, as if he could hear her thoughts. "You mentioned it once. October. Coffee run. You were on the phone with someone. October." She'd been talking to the barista, making small talk while waiting for his triple espresso, extra hot, no foam. A throwaway comment about her guilty pleasure movies. She barely remembered it. He remembered. Elena's hands were shaking again, but for different reasons now. "You're at the plaza," she typed. "Champagne. Important people. Why are you texting me?" The response took longer this time. "Because everyone here is performing. I'm tired of performing." Something cracked open in her chest. She set down her wine glass before she could drop it. "Where are you?" he asked. "Home." "Alone?" The question sat on her screen, stark and invasive and somehow not invasive at all. Elena looked around her apartment, studio, technically, though calling it that was generous. 400 square feet of chipped paint and a radiator that clanked like it was trying to communicate in Morse code. A kitchen the size of a closet. A bathroom where you could sit on the toilet and wash your hands in the sink simultaneously. This was not Dominic Rayner's world. His world was penthouse views and charity auctions and women who wore dresses that cost more than Elena's annual rent. Yes, she typed. By choice? Her throat tightened. The honest answer was complicated. The honest answer was that she'd stopped getting invited places years ago because she always said no, and eventually people stopped asking. The honest answer was that being alone felt safer than being the awkward one in the corner, watching everyone else know how to exist in their own skin. Does it matter? Yes. One word, simple, direct. It mattered. Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The TV had moved on to the big romantic gesture scene, the guy running through the rain, the girl opening the door, the music swelling. She'd seen this exact plot 100 times. It never got old because it never happened. I don't really do New Year's, she finally typed. Too much pressure, too many expectations. Easier to skip it. I'm standing in a room full of people I don't like, pretending to enjoy conversations I don't care about, counting down to a midnight I won't remember. Want to trade? She almost laughed. Almost. You're Dominic Rayner. You could leave. Could I? The question hung there, heavier than it should have been, and Elena realized with a strange jolt of recognition that maybe he was just as trapped as she was. Different cage. Same lock. Why are you really texting me? She asked. The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I don't know. I saw your name in my contacts. Started typing. Didn't stop. Her heart was doing something acrobatic and stupid in her chest. That's not very CEO of you. No, it's not. Elena pulled her knees tighter to her chest. The radiator clanked. Outside, someone set off fireworks early, illegal ones that cracked the sky open with sound. What are you drinking? He asked. Wine. Cheap. You? Champagne. Expensive. Tastes like regret. She did laugh then, a short exhale that surprised her. Regret has a taste? Tonight it does. Her phone buzzed again before she could respond. Tell me something true. Elena froze. The request was too open, too raw. She could deflect, make a joke, retreat into the safe distance they'd maintained for 2 years of working together. Her in the background, him in the spotlight, never quite looking at each other directly. Instead, she typed, I hate New Year's Eve because it's a reminder that nothing changes. Every year I think maybe this time will be different. It never is. She hit send before she could reconsider. The response came fast. I hate New Year's Eve because everyone pretends change matters. Tomorrow will be exactly like yesterday. Same office, same expectations, same emptiness. Elena's breath hitched. She read his words again, looking for the CEO polish, the careful corporate deflection. It wasn't there. This was something else, something unguarded. We're very cheerful tonight, she typed. I blame the champagne. I blame the penguins. What? My pajamas. They have penguins on them. Very aggressive penguins. I think they're judging me. This time she knew he laughed, could almost hear it through the screen. I'm in a $1,500 tuxedo, surrounded by New York's elite, and I would give anything to see aggressive penguin pajamas right now. Elena's face flushed. The comment was innocent, probably, but it landed somewhere dangerous, somewhere that made her hyper-aware of how thin her pajamas were, how her hair was piled in a messy knot, how she hadn't bothered with anything resembling presentable because no one was going to see her. Careful. That sounded almost human. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. The conversation spiraled from there, small confessions traded back and forth like currency. He told her about the donor who cornered him by the shrimp tower to pitch a cryptocurrency scheme. She told him about the time she'd accidentally donated all his expensive work shirts to Goodwill and had to buy them back at markup. He admitted he'd noticed. She admitted she'd known he'd noticed. Why didn't you say anything? She asked. Because watching you try to act natural while wearing a guilty expression for 3 weeks was the most entertainment I'd had all year. I hate you. No, you don't. He was right. She didn't. The truth was more complicated, more dangerous. The truth was that Elena had spent 2 years perfecting the art of not looking at Dominic Rayner directly, not noticing the way his voice dropped half an octave when he was tired, not cataloging the specific angle of his jaw when he was frustrated, not wondering what his hands would feel like if they ever touched her with intention instead of accidental proximity. She'd gotten very good at not noticing, but alone in her apartment, wine humming warm in her veins, his words appearing on her screen in real time. She couldn't not notice. Couldn't pretend she didn't know exactly what his cologne smelled like, or that she'd memorized the specific shade of gray his eyes turned when he was thinking hard about something. "Can I ask you something?" His text broke through her spiral. "You just did." Elena, her name. He so rarely used her name. It was always "I need," or "can you," or just a meaningful look that she'd learned to interpret. Seeing it typed out, deliberate and specific, made her stomach flip. "Okay. Ask. Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life, like you took a wrong turn somewhere and ended up in someone else's story?" Elena stared at the message. The vulnerability in it was staggering. This wasn't her boss. This was a person, stripped down to something honest and lost. "Every single day," she typed. What would the right life look like? The question was impossible. The question was everything. Elena thought about the life she'd imagined as a kid, before her dad left, before her mom retreated into bitterness, before she learned that wanting things was just setting yourself up for disappointment. She'd wanted noise, chaos, a house full of people who stayed. "I don't know anymore," she admitted. "I think I forgot how to want things. I don't believe that." "Why not?" "Because I've watched you fight for extra cream in my coffee like it's a hostage negotiation. You want things. You've just convinced yourself you don't deserve them." The accuracy of it punched the air from her lungs. "That's not fair," she typed. "It's true. You don't know me." The typing indicator disappeared. A full minute passed. "You're right. I don't. I know you take your coffee black with too much sugar. I know you color code my calendar by priority and mood. I know you deflect every compliment and apologize for things that aren't your fault. I know you're brilliant at your job and terrible at recognizing it. But I don't know why you're alone tonight, and I want to." Elena's hands were shaking so badly she had to set the phone down. She stood, paced to her window, looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Dominic Rayner was standing in a ballroom full of glittering people, typing messages to her instead of schmoozing donors. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Her phone buzzed. "I'm sorry. That was too much. Forget I'm alone because it is easier," she interrupted his apology. "Because if you don't let people in, they can't leave. Because I'm very good at being invisible and very bad at being anything else." She hit send and immediately wanted to take it back. Too honest, too raw. She'd just handed her boss a roadmap to every defense mechanism she'd spent years constructing. "You're not invisible." 3 words. They landed like a grenade. "To you, I am. I'm the person who makes sure your life runs smoothly. I'm supposed to be invisible. That's the job. That's never been how I see you." Elena's heart was hammering now, rabbit fast and dangerous. "How do you see me?" The question hung in the digital space between them. She watched the typing indicator pulse. Stop. Start again. "Honestly, please. I see you every day. I see you before I see anyone else because you're always there first. I see you in every decision because you've anticipated what I need before I know I need it. I see you leaving at night, and I want to ask you to stay. Not for work, just stay." Elena couldn't breathe. The words on her screen blurred. "Dominic, I know. I know this is crossing every line we've ever drawn. I know you're my employee and I'm your boss, and this is exactly the kind of thing that ruins careers and makes headlines. I know all of it, and I'm telling you anyway because it's 11:30 on New Year's Eve, and I'm so tired of pretending." Her phone slipped from her shaking hands, clattered onto the floor. She picked it up, checked for cracks, saw another message waiting. "Say something, please." What could she say? That she'd been pretending too? That every professional boundary she'd maintained was a lie she told herself to survive proximity to him? That she'd spent 2 years cataloging every detail of him while convincing herself it meant nothing? "I don't know what to say. Tell me I'm not alone in this." The honesty of it broke something open in her chest. "You're not alone." The response was immediate. "Thank God." Elena laughed, a wet sound that might have been half a sob. This was insane. This was career suicide. This was every HR policy she'd ever signed violated in real time. This was also the most alive she'd felt in years. "What happens now?" she typed. "I don't know. Very decisive for a CEO. I left my decisiveness in the coat check." Another message followed immediately. "I want to see you." Elena's stomach dropped. You see me every day. Not like this. Not really. You're at a gala. I'm in penguin pajamas. The logistics are complicated. The logistics are irrelevant. Dominic, I mean it. I don't want to do this over text. I don't want our first real conversation to be through a screen. This is our first real conversation. Exactly. And I hate it. I want to see your face when you talk. I want to know if you do that thing where you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking. He stopped typing. Elena waited, heart in her throat. I want to leave this party and come to you. Right now. Tell me not to. She should tell him not to. She should be the rational one, the one who remembered consequences and professional boundaries and the 1,000 ways this could implode spectacularly. Instead, she typed, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Elena, you're a grown man. You get to make your own terrible decisions. This wouldn't be terrible. It would be complicated. Yes. It would change everything. Yes. We could lose our jobs. I don't care. The certainty in those 3 words made her dizzy. You should care. You've built an empire. I can't be the reason you throw that away. You're not hearing me. I don't care. I've spent 2 years being careful, being appropriate, maintaining distance, and I'm done. I'm so done. If I have to spend one more midnight pretending I don't feel this, I'm going to lose my mind. Elena's hands were shaking so hard she could barely type. Feel what? You. I feel you constantly, every day. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about before I sleep, and I am so tired of pretending that's normal. The words blurred on her screen. She wiped her eyes, frustrated with herself, with him, with the impossible situation crystallizing between them. This is crazy. I know, you're my boss, I know. I don't do spontaneous, I don't do risky. I do safe and predictable and invisible. I know that too. And I'm asking anyway. Elena looked around her apartment. Same couch, same TV, same life she'd been living on repeat for years, each day bleeding into the next with nothing to distinguish them. Outside, someone screamed, 10 minutes, even though it was earlier than that. Where are you? Dominic's text appeared. She typed her address before she could think better of it. The typing indicator pulsed for a long time. I'm leaving now. Elena's heart stopped. Wait. What? No, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Dominic, you can't just leave a gala. Watch me. What about all those important people? They'll survive. Your reputation is built on being cold and controlled and untouchable. Maybe it's time to ruin it. She couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. This was the wine and the loneliness and the dangerous intimacy of late-night texts making her hallucinate. How long? She typed. 30 minutes. Maybe less if I ignore traffic laws. Don't ignore traffic laws. Elena. What? Stop thinking. For once in your life, just stop thinking and feel. The message hit her like a physical thing. I'm terrified, she admitted. Me too. What if this is a mistake? What if it's not? Elena looked at her reflection in the darkened window. Penguin pajamas, messy hair, no makeup. This was possibly the least prepared she'd ever been for anything. I'm not dressed for company. I don't care what you're wearing. I look terrible. Impossible. You haven't seen me tonight. I've seen you every day for 2 years. You're incapable of looking terrible. Her face flushed. She grabbed her wine glass, drained it, immediately regretted it. Liquid courage was a myth. She just felt dizzy. I should change. Don't. Don't change anything. Don't put on armor. I want to see you, the real you, not the professional version. The real me is a mess. Good. So am I. Elena's phone buzzed with another message. I'm in the car. This was real. This was actually happening. She looked around her apartment with fresh horror. Dishes in the sink, laundry on the chair, the general chaos of someone who lived alone and stopped pretending otherwise. She had 25 minutes. Elena moved through her space like a tornado, shoving things into closets, wiping down counters, lighting a candle that she immediately blew out because it smelled aggressively of Christmas cookie, and it was New Year's Eve. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, stared at her reflection and tried to decide if she should put on real clothes. The penguin pajamas mocked her. She left them on. Her phone buzzed. 15 minutes. Elena sat on her couch. Stood. sat again. Her heart was trying to escape her chest. This was Dominic Reiner, her boss. The man she'd spent 2 years not thinking about, not noticing, not wanting. Liar. She'd wanted him from the first day. She'd just gotten very good at lying to herself. 10 minutes. Elena paced to the window. The city glittered below, alive with celebration. Somewhere in that chaos, Dominic was driving toward her, leaving behind the life that made sense to step into whatever this was. 5 minutes. She couldn't sit, couldn't stand, couldn't breathe properly. What was she supposed to say? How was she supposed to act? Every interaction they'd ever had was filtered through professionalism. She didn't know how to be around him without the armor of her job title. "I'm here." Elena's intercom buzzed. She stared at it like it might explode. This was it. Last chance to retreat, to say she'd changed her mind, to protect herself from the inevitable hurt that came from wanting things. The intercom buzzed again. She pressed the button. "Hi," she said, voice smaller than she wanted. "Hi." His voice crackled through the speaker, rough and real. "Can I come up?" "4th floor, no elevator." "I'll survive." She buzzed him in. Elena counted his footsteps up the stairs. Each one brought him closer, brought this moment closer, brought the end of everything safe and predictable closer. The knock was soft. She opened the door. Dominic Reiner stood in her hallway, tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, bow tie hanging loose, hair slightly disheveled from what? Running his hands through it? The drive? She didn't know. She couldn't think. He looked at her. Really looked. His eyes tracked over her face like he was memorizing it, like he'd never actually seen her before. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she echoed. Neither of them moved. "Your pajamas have penguins," he finally said. "I warned you." "They're perfect." Elena laughed, a nervous burst of sound. "They're ridiculous." "Still perfect." The silence stretched between them, loaded with everything they'd said and everything they hadn't. "I can't believe you're here," she whispered. "I can't believe it took me this long." Dominic stepped inside. Elena closed the door behind him, and suddenly her apartment felt impossibly small. He was too big for the space, too real, too present. "This is insane," she said. "Probably. We shouldn't. I know. Dominic, I didn't want another midnight without you." The words came out rough, honest. "I've had too many of them, years of them, and I'm done." Elena's breath caught. Outside, fireworks popped. Someone screamed the countdown even though they still had minutes left. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Neither do I. I'm scared." "Me too." He took a step closer, then another. Elena's back hit the door. "Tell me to leave," he said quietly. "Tell me this is a mistake and I'll go. I'll get back in that car and we'll pretend this never happened. We'll go back to before." "Can we?" "No, but we can try." Elena looked up at him, really looked, saw the uncertainty in his eyes, the vulnerability he'd never shown her before. This wasn't her boss. This was just a man, terrified and hopeful and standing in her doorway at 11:50 on New Year's Eve. "I don't want you to leave," she whispered. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, want, fear. "Then tell me what you do want." The question hung between them. Elena could hear the city counting down outside, could feel the weight of the moment, the impossibility of it. She could retreat, protect herself, stay safe. Or she could jump. "You," she said. "I want you." Dominic closed the distance between them in one step. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Elena's breath stuttered. "I need to know you're sure," he said, "because once this starts, I don't know how to go back. I'm not sure, I'm terrified, but I'm also tired of being careful." Outside, the countdown began. Actual midnight was approaching. 10. His other hand found her waist. 9. Elena's hands gripped his shirt. 8. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. 7. She nodded. 6. "Say it." 5. "Yes." 4. He leaned in. 3. Her eyes fluttered closed. 2. His lips brushed hers, feather light. 1. The city exploded with sound. fireworks and horns and screaming celebration. And Dominic Rayner kissed Elena Vale like he'd been starving for it, like the 2 years of restraint had built up into something desperate and consuming. His hand tangled in her hair. Her fingers dug into his shoulders. The kiss was not gentle. It was need and relief and the breaking of every careful boundary they'd maintained. Elena had been kissed before. Awkward teenage experiments, a few forgettable dates in college. Nothing that mattered. This mattered. This was midnight and fireworks and the terrifying freefall of wanting someone who could destroy you. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena's back still pressed against the door, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. "How long?" "Since you brought me coffee on your third day and told me my previous assistant made it wrong. You were so nervous you were shaking, but you still corrected me." Elena laughed breathlessly. "I thought you were going to fire me." "I was halfway in love with you." The confession stopped her heart. She pulled back to look at him, searching his face for the lie, the exaggeration. She found only truth. "Dominic, I know. Too much, too fast. I don't care." His thumb traced her lower lip. "I've spent 2 years being appropriate. I'm done being appropriate." Elena didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process that this them was real, so she kissed him again. They stumbled toward her couch, a tangle of limbs and desperate touches. Dominic's tuxedo jacket hit the floor. Elena's hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling with them until he caught her wrists. "Slow down," he said against her mouth. "I thought you were done being appropriate." "I am, but I'm not doing this in a rush, not with you. Not our first time. Our first time." This implication hung there, that there would be more, that this wasn't just one impulsive midnight. "What are we doing?" Elena whispered. "I don't know, but I know I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not unless you ask me to." She should ask him to. Should be the rational one. Should think about Monday morning and HR policies and the dozens of ways this could implode. Instead, she pulled him down onto the couch beside her, curled into his side like she belonged there. They sat in silence, listening to the city celebrate around them. Dominic's arm wrapped around her shoulders. Elena's head rested against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "Now we figure it out, together. It's going to be complicated. Yes. People will talk. Let them. I could lose my job." "You won't. I won't let that happen." Elena tilted her head to look up at him. "You can't promise that. Watch me." His expression was fierce, certain. "I don't know how this works. I don't know how to date my assistant without it becoming a nightmare. But I know I'm not losing you. Not now. So we'll figure it out. We'll do it right. Transparent, by the book. Whatever it takes." "You've really thought about this." "I've thought about nothing else for months." The admission made her chest ache. All this time she'd thought she was alone in this, that the want was one-sided, shameful, impossible. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Good. Me too. Means it matters." Elena settled back against his chest. Outside, the fireworks were fading. The screaming subsided. The city was moving into the new year, carrying them along with it. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena wasn't dreading what came next. She was terrified. But she wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Elena woke to unfamiliar weight across her waist. For 3 disorienting seconds, she couldn't place it. The warmth, the pressure, the steady rise and fall of breathing that wasn't hers. Then memory crashed back in fragments. Midnight, fireworks, Dominic's mouth on hers. The two of them tangled on her couch until exhaustion won and they'd fallen asleep still dressed, still touching. Her eyes snapped open. Gray morning light filtered through her cheap blinds. The TV had gone dark hours ago. Dominic's arm was draped over her, his chest pressed against her back, his breath warm against her neck. They'd shifted in sleep, spooning like they'd done this 1,000 times instead of never. Elena's heart hammered. This was real. He was real. This wasn't some wine-fueled hallucination. She needed to move, needed space to think, to process, to figure out what the hell happened next. But the moment she tried to shift away, Dominic's arm tightened. Don't, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. I need to. 5 more minutes. Dominic, please. The vulnerability in that single word stopped her. Elena went still, let herself be held, tried to ignore the panic clawing up her throat. Because this was nice. This was good. And in her experience, good things didn't last. They got 5 more minutes. Maybe 7. Then Dominic's phone started buzzing with the insistence of a world that didn't care about stolen moments. He groaned, released her, sat up. His hair stuck up at odd angles. His shirt was wrinkled beyond salvation. He looked nothing like the controlled CEO she worked for, and everything like a man who'd made a series of impulsive decisions and was only now beginning to calculate the cost. Elena watched him check his phone, watched his jaw tighten as he scrolled through what had to be dozens of messages. How bad? She asked. Marcus is having an aneurysm. Apparently I disappeared from the gala without telling anyone, and now the press is speculating about everything from a medical emergency to a hostile takeover attempt. Oh, God. It's fine. It's not fine. You're all over the news. Elena. He set down his phone, turned to face her fully. I don't care. You should care. Your reputation will survive me leaving a party early. His hand found hers, fingers threading through. What I care about is what happens next. With us. Us. The word sat heavy between them. We need to talk about work, Elena said. I know. Like, actually talk, not just whatever last night was. Last night was me finally being honest. Last night was insane. Yes. He didn't look remotely sorry about it. Elena pulled her hand free, stood, needed distance to think. She paced to her kitchen, 5 steps, barely a kitchen, and started making coffee because her hands needed something to do. We can't just show up Monday and pretend nothing changed, she said. I agree. I'm your assistant. You're my boss. There are policies. HR exists for a reason. I know. So what's the plan? She turned to face him. Because I can't lose this job, Dominic. It's all I have. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or frustration. That's not all you have. It's my income, my insurance, my entire professional identity. I don't have a safety net. You do. So what are you saying? I'm saying we need to be smart about this, strategic. We can't just... She gestured vaguely between them. Whatever this is, we can't do it recklessly. Dominic stood, crossed to her. The space was so small he was there in 3 steps. What do you want, Elena? I don't know. Yes, you do. Say it. I want to keep my job. I want to not get fired for fraternization. I want... Her voice cracked. I want last night to have been real, and not just some midnight impulse you're going to regret when the champagne wears off. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle and certain. I haven't had champagne in 8 hours. I'm stone cold sober, and I don't regret a single second. You might when this gets complicated. It's already complicated. I don't care. You keep saying that because it's true. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. I will navigate every HR policy. I will be transparent with the board. I will do whatever it takes to make this work without destroying your career. But I need you to tell me you want this, not the sanitized, safe version, the real thing. Elena's chest ached. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wouldn't implode spectacularly and leave her jobless and heartbroken. I'm terrified, she whispered. I know. What if we're making a mistake? Then we'll fix it, together. The coffee maker beeped. Elena pulled away, poured 2 cups, handed him one. He took it, took a sip, made a face. This is terrible. I don't have your fancy espresso machine. I'll buy you one. Don't you dare. Why not? Because she stopped herself, realizing how quickly they'd fallen into bickering like this was normal, like they did this every morning. We need ground rules. Okay? At work, nothing changes. We're professional, appropriate. No one can know until we figure out the HR situation. Agreed. No special treatment, no favoritism. I do my job, you do yours. Fine. And if this doesn't work, if it gets too complicated or one of us wants out, we end it cleanly. No drama. No making it weird at the office. Dominic's expression hardened. You're already planning our breakup. I'm being realistic. You're being scared. Same thing. It's not. He set down his coffee, stepped closer again. I'm not going into this planning an exit strategy. I'm all in. If you need time to think about this, I'll give you that. But don't ask me to hedge my bets. That's not fair. None of this is fair. It's messy and complicated and probably a dozen kinds of inappropriate. But it's real. At least it is for me. Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to maintain some semblance of control over a situation that was spiraling beyond her grasp. But the look in his eyes, open and certain and absolutely terrifying, stopped her. It's real for me too, she admitted quietly. That's why I'm scared. His shoulders dropped, tension bleeding out. Okay, then we figure it out, one step at a time. Starting with me going home, showering, and calling our legal team to understand exactly what protocols we need to follow. You're actually going to tell them. I'm not hiding this. I won't put you in a position where this blows up and destroys your reputation. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Dominic retrieved his jacket from where it had landed near her couch, shrugged into it despite the wrinkles. He looked like he'd been through a war, disheveled, exhausted, and somehow more real than she'd ever seen him. At the door, he paused. Can I see you tonight? Not at work? Here, or my place, or neutral territory? Somewhere we can talk without an audience. Okay. He kissed her. Brief, gentle. A promise. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone in her apartment with 2 cups of terrible coffee and the terrifying reality of what they'd started. She called in sick. It was cowardly, and she knew it. But the thought of walking into that office, pretending everything was normal while her entire world had shifted on its axis. She couldn't do it. Not today, not yet. She spent the day in a fog of anxiety and disbelief, checking her phone compulsively for messages that didn't come. Dominic was handling things. Being strategic, doing exactly what he said he'd do. That should have been reassuring. Instead, Elena spiraled, because this was how it started, wasn't it? The excitement, the certainty, the promises, and then reality set in. Complications emerged. People got hurt. By the time her phone finally buzzed at 6 p.m., she'd convinced herself he'd changed his mind. Can I come over? We need to talk. Her stomach dropped. We need to talk. Nothing good ever followed those 4 words. Okay. He arrived 20 minutes later, looking every inch the CEO again. Tailored suit, perfect hair, the armor of professionalism firmly back in place. But his eyes were tired, and when Elena let him in, she could see the tension in his shoulders. What happened? She asked. Dominic loosened his tie, sat heavily on her couch. I talked to legal, and HR, and Marcus, who thinks I've lost my mind. And? And it's complicated. There's no explicit policy against interoffice relationships, but there are disclosure requirements, power dynamics considerations, potential conflicts of interest. Elena's heart sank. So we can't. We can. But you can't work for me directly anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. What? If we pursue this, you'll need to transfer to a different department, different reporting structure. It's the only way to eliminate the ethical complications. Elena sat down before her legs gave out. Transfer where? Operations? Marketing? Finance? Your choice. Same pay, same benefits, same title level, but you wouldn't be my assistant anymore. That job is all I know. You're capable of more. That's not the point. Her voice was rising, panic sharpening it. I've spent 2 years learning your systems, your preferences, your entire world. I'm good at that job. I don't want a different one. Elena, this is exactly what I was afraid of. One night, and my entire career gets upended. That's not what's happening, isn't it? You get to stay exactly where you are. I'm the one who has to change everything. Dominic's jaw tightened. What's the alternative? We hide this? Sneak around? Violate every ethical guideline until someone finds out and it becomes a scandal? I don't know. I'm trying to protect you. By forcing me out of my job? It's not forcing. It is. Because if I say no, if I refuse to transfer, then what? This ends? We pretend New Year's never happened? The silence that followed was suffocating. Is that what you want? Dominic asked quietly. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to steady herself. trying to think past the fear and anger clouding her judgment. "I want this to be simple," she finally said. "I want to not have to choose between you and the only stability I've ever had." "I know. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix it." "No, but it's honest." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I knew this would be complicated. I knew there would be sacrifices. I didn't anticipate how much I'd hate asking you to make them." "So what do we do?" "I don't know. That's why I'm here, to figure it out, together." Elena looked at him, really looked. Saw the exhaustion, the frustration, the same fear she was feeling mirrored back at her. He wasn't handling this with perfect CEO composure. He was struggling too. "I need time," she said, "to think about the transfer, about all of it." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? A week?" Something flickered in his expression, disappointment maybe or hurt, but he nodded. "Okay. Take the time you need." "And in the meantime?" "In the meantime, we go back to how things were, professional, appropriate, until you decide." The words should have been reassuring. Instead, they felt like a door closing. Dominic stood. Elena walked him to her door, the space between them charged with everything they weren't saying. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I think you'd be brilliant in any department. You're wasted as an assistant." "Don't." "I mean it." "I know you do. That's not the point." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll see you at the office." "Yeah." He left. Elena closed the door, pressed her forehead against it, and tried not to cry. Monday arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. Elena walked into Reiner Industries at exactly 8:47 a.m., early enough to beat most of the staff, late enough that Dominic would already be in his office. She'd rehearsed her professional demeanor all weekend, practiced keeping her face neutral, her voice steady, her entire being locked down tight. She made it to her desk without incident, booted up her computer, started going through Dominic's calendar for the week, flagging conflicts, preparing briefing documents, doing exactly what she'd done for 2 years, except everything felt wrong. Her hands shook as she typed. Her chest ached with proximity to his office. Just 20 feet away, door closed, him in there doing whatever CEOs did while their assistants fell apart outside. At 9:15, her phone extension buzzed. "Yes?" Her voice came out steady. Small miracle. "Can you come in here, please?" Dominic's voice was pure business, like New Year's had never happened, like he hadn't kissed her senseless in her apartment and promised to figure everything out. Elena grabbed her tablet, knocked once, entered. Dominic sat behind his desk, looking every inch the executive. Crisp shirt, perfect tie. Reading glasses she'd always found unfairly attractive. He glanced up, expression neutral. "I need you to reschedule the Portland meeting," he said. "Conflict with the board presentation." "When would you like it moved to?" "Next week, Tuesday or Wednesday." "I'll handle it." "Thank you." The dismissal was clear. Elena turned to leave. "Elena?" She stopped, didn't turn around. "Yes?" "Have you thought more about what we discussed?" Professional question, carefully worded. Anyone listening would assume they were talking about work. "I'm still thinking." "Take the time you need." She left before her composure cracked. The week crawled by in excruciating slow motion. Every interaction with Dominic was painfully correct. Every email precisely worded. Every phone call devoid of anything personal. They were very good at pretending. Elena hated it. By Thursday, she was ready to crawl out of her skin. The not knowing was destroying her. The what-if spiral was relentless. Transfer and risk everything on a relationship that might implode. Stay and watch whatever they'd started wither from forced distance. She was still debating when Marcus Chen appeared at her desk at 4:30 p.m. Marcus was Dominic's CFO, his best friend since business school, and generally one of the few people at Reiner Industries who treated Elena like a human being instead of office furniture. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Sure." He sat in the chair across from her desk, the one vendors and visitors used when waiting to see Dominic. His expression was carefully neutral, which immediately put Elena on edge. "I'm going to be direct," Marcus said, "because I respect you too much to dance around this." Elena's stomach dropped. "Okay. What's going on with you and Dominic?" The blood drained from her face. "I don't—" He disappeared from the gala on New Year's, Showed up the next day looking like he'd been through a war. Called an emergency meeting with legal and HR about disclosure protocols. And suddenly you're calling in sick and the two of you can barely look at each other. We're fine. You're a terrible liar. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. Did he tell you? He didn't have to. I've known him for 15 years. I know what he looks like when he's falling for someone. We're not. Elena. Marcus leaned forward. I'm not here to judge. I'm here because I care about both of you, and I can see this going sideways in about a dozen ways. Then you understand why I'm... She stopped, realizing she was confirming everything. This is complicated. No shit. But his tone was gentle. You want my advice? Do I have a choice? Not really. He smiled slightly. The transfer is a good idea, necessary even. But if you're hesitating because you're scared of change, or because you think you're only valuable in that specific role, you're wrong. You don't know that. I do. I've seen the work you do. The way you manage crises, anticipate problems, keep everything running. That's not assistant work. That's executive-level thinking. You're underutilized here. I like my job. You like feeling safe. There's a difference. The observation hit too close to home. What if I transfer and it doesn't work out? Elena asked quietly. With him? With us. Then I'm stuck in a new department, probably resented for getting special treatment, and I've lost everything. Or, Marcus countered, you take the leap and discover you're capable of more than you ever gave yourself credit for, with or without Dominic. That's a very optimistic take. I'm a CFO. Optimism isn't my default setting, but I've watched Dominic build an empire through calculated risks. Maybe it's time you took one too. He stood, straightened his jacket. For what it's worth, he added, I've never seen him like this. Whatever you two have, it's real. Don't let fear kill it before it has a chance. He left before Elena could respond. She sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen without seeing it, Marcus's words echoing in her head. At 6:30, most of the office had cleared out. Elena was still at her desk, pretending to work, really just avoiding going home to her empty apartment, and the decision waiting there. Dominic's door opened. He stopped when he saw her, surprise flickering across his face. You're still here. So are you. I had calls with Singapore. He paused. What's your excuse? Elena saved the document she wasn't actually working on, closed her laptop. Avoiding real life. How's that going? Terribly. Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. Come in here for a minute? It wasn't an order. It was a request. Elena followed him into his office, closed the door behind her because whatever this was, it needed privacy. Dominic didn't sit behind his desk. Instead, he leaned against it, arms crossed, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Marcus talked to you, he said. How did you... He told me he was going to. I asked him not to, but Marcus does what Marcus wants. He was trying to help. I know, did it? Elena moved to the window, looked out at the city turning gold with sunset. From up here, everything looked orderly, manageable, not at all like the chaos swirling in her chest. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be the person who takes risks. I'm the person who plays it safe, who stays invisible, who doesn't rock the boat. That's not who I see. Then who do you see? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, honest. I see someone who's been conditioned to believe she doesn't deserve good things. Someone who's so used to being overlooked that she's made herself small on purpose. But underneath that, he moved closer. Underneath that is someone fierce and brilliant and capable of so much more than she's allowing herself to be. Elena's eyes stung. You barely know me. I know you better than you think. I've watched you handle impossible situations with grace. I've seen you stand up to vendors twice your size. I've watched you reorganize an entire department's workflow in a weekend because it was inefficient. You're not small, Elena. You're a force. You've just convinced yourself otherwise. Stop. Why? Because it's easier. Because if I believe I'm capable of more, then I have to actually try. And if I try and fail, then you fail. And you get back up. Like everyone else. Easy for you to say. You've never failed at anything. Dominic laughed, sharp and humorless. I've failed at plenty. Failed relationships, failed partnerships, failed at being present for people who mattered. The difference is I can afford my failures. I have safety nets, you don't. I understand why that makes you cautious. But I'm asking you to trust me anyway. Transfer to operations. Head up the efficiency division Marcus and I have been discussing. Same pay plus 20% increase. Your own team. Real authority. Elena's breath caught. What? We need someone who understands how this company actually functions. Someone who can identify inefficiencies and fix them. That's you. It's always been you. You can't just create a position for me. I'm not. The position exists. We've been trying to fill it for 6 months. You're the most qualified candidate. People will say I only got it because She couldn't finish the sentence. Let them. Your work will speak for itself. Elena turned to face him fully. And if this doesn't work, us? Then you'll still have a job you're excellent at, with a reporting structure that goes through Marcus, not me. You won't be dependent on our relationship surviving. It was logical, strategic, everything she'd asked for, security, opportunity, a path forward that didn't require sacrificing her career. So why did she still feel terrified? I need to think about it, she said. Something flickered in Dominic's eyes, frustration or disappointment or resignation. How much more time? I don't know. Elena, I'm sorry. I know that's not fair. I know you've done everything I asked, but this is my entire life. I can't just... Her voice cracked. I can't just jump without looking. Dominic nodded slowly. Okay, take the time you need. You keep saying that because I mean it. What if I decide I can't do this? The transfer, the relationship, all of it. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. Then I'll respect your decision, he finally said, and we'll go back to how things were. Can we? No, but we'll try. Elena wanted to close the distance between them, wanted to stop overthinking and just feel. But the office felt wrong, too professional, too exposed, too much a reminder of everything they stood to lose. I should go, she said. Dominic didn't argue, didn't try to convince her to stay, just nodded and let her leave. Elena made it to the elevator before the tears started. Friday was worse. The tension between her and Dominic had crystallized into something brittle and painful. Every interaction felt loaded. Every email a potential minefield. At 2 p.m., Elena was in the break room making coffee when Sarah from accounting cornered her. So, Sarah said with the tone of someone about to gossip, what's going on with Mr. Rayner? Elena's hand stilled on the coffee pot. What do you mean? He's been in a mood all week, snapping at people, looking like he hasn't slept. Usually when he gets like this, you smooth it over, but you've been scarce too. I've been at my desk. You've been hiding at your desk. There's a difference. Elena poured her coffee, didn't respond. Did something happen? Sarah pressed. Between you two? No. Because if he's giving you trouble, you can file a complaint. He's not. We're fine. Everything's fine. Sarah looked unconvinced, but let it drop. Elena returned to her desk, hands shaking so badly coffee sloshed over the rim of her mug. This was exactly what she'd feared. People noticing, speculating, the entire office watching their every move. At 4:30, her phone rang. Not her desk extension. Her cell. Unknown number. Hello? Elena Vale? Yes? This is Jennifer Rodriguez from the New York Tribune. I'm working on a story about Dominic Rayner, and I was hoping you could answer a few questions. Elena's blood went cold. I don't speak to press. It's about his sudden departure from the New Year's gala. Sources suggest there may have been a personal emergency or... Elena hung up. Her hands were shaking. She stared at her phone like it might explode, trying to process what just happened. The press. Asking about New Year's. How did they even get her number? She needed to tell Dominic. Elena grabbed her phone, stood, crossed the 20 feet to his office, and knocked. Come in. He looked up from his computer, saw her face, and immediately stood. What's wrong? I just got a call from a reporter asking about New Year's Eve. Dominic's expression went carefully blank. What did you say? Nothing. I hung up. But they had my cell number, Dominic. They know... She stopped, realizing the door was still open. She closed it. They're digging. Shit. He ran a hand through his hair, perfect composure fracturing. Okay, this is manageable. How is this manageable? I'll call our PR team. We'll get ahead of it. Get ahead of what? There's nothing to tell them. We haven't. Elena's voice was rising. She forced it down. There's no story. There's always a story. CEO disappears from charity gala, shows up disheveled the next day, changes his assistant's job description. They'll connect dots that don't exist and print it anyway. So what do we do? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. We could give them the truth. What? Controlled statement. Confirm we're seeing each other. Emphasize that all proper protocols are being followed. Cut off speculation before it spirals. Elena's heart was hammering. That's insane. Why? Because I haven't even decided if I'm taking the transfer. We're not officially together. We're just... She gestured helplessly between them. I don't even know what we are. Then maybe it's time to figure it out. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Elena's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She didn't answer. They're not going to stop, Dominic said quietly. Once the Tribune starts digging, everyone else will follow. This becomes a circus or we control the narrative. Your choice. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. It's reality. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to rewind to New Year's Eve and make different decisions, safer ones. Ones that didn't lead to reporters calling her cell and her entire life imploding in real time. I can't do this, she said. Elena, I can't. I'm sorry. I thought I could, but I can't. This is too much, too fast, too public. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we made a mistake. The words came out small and broken, but they landed like bombs. Dominic's face went very still. You don't mean that. I do. We got caught up in a moment. New Year's, loneliness. But this is real life, and real life is complicated, and I can't... Her voice cracked. I can't lose everything for a relationship that might not even work. It will work. You don't know that. I do. How? How can you possibly know that? Because I've never felt like this about anyone. Because every decision I've made this week has been about protecting you. Because the thought of going back to how things were, pretending you don't matter, is unbearable. Elena's eyes burned. I'm sorry. Don't do this. I have to. Why? Because I'm terrified. The admission burst out of her, raw and desperate. I'm terrified of trusting this, of trusting you, of believing I get to have something good without it being ripped away. And I'd rather end it now, on my terms, than wait for it to fall apart later. Dominic stared at her like she'd stabbed him. So you're choosing to be alone. I'm choosing to be safe. Same thing. Maybe for me it is. The silence that followed was devastating. Okay, Dominic finally said, voice carefully controlled. If that's what you want. It is. Then we're done. Professionally, personally, all of it. The finality of it hit like a physical blow. What? You're right. This was a mistake. We'll go back to how things were. You can keep your job. I'll stop pushing. We'll be appropriately professional. Dominic, was there anything else? The dismissal was clear, cold. Everything warm and honest between them had crystallized into professional distance. Elena shook her head, not trusting her voice. Then I'll see you Monday. She left his office, made it to the bathroom before the tears came, and realized she'd just destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to her because she was too scared to believe she deserved it. Elena lasted 3 days. 3 days of Dominic's door staying closed. 3 days of emails so professionally cold they could have been generated by algorithm. 3 days of watching him move through the office like she didn't exist, not with anger, which would have been better, but with complete indifference. By Wednesday morning, she was unraveling. She'd made a mistake, a catastrophic, irreversible mistake born from fear and self-protection and the absolute certainty that good things didn't happen to people like her. And now she was living in the aftermath, watching the door close on something that could have been extraordinary because she'd been too terrified to reach for it. At 9 a.m., Marcus appeared at her desk. Conference room 3. Now. Elena's stomach dropped. What's going on? Just come. She followed him down the hallway, dread building with every step. Conference room 3 was small, windowless, the kind of space used for difficult conversations that needed privacy. Dominic was already there. So was a woman Elena didn't recognize, 50s, expensive suit, the kind of sharp-eyed assessment that screamed lawyer. Sit down, the woman said. Elena sat. Her hands were shaking. I'm Catherine Mills, senior counsel for Rayner Industries, the woman continued. I'm here because we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Okay, Elena managed. Catherine slid a folder across the table. The New York Tribune is running a story tomorrow morning. It alleges that you and Mr. Rayner have been engaged in an inappropriate workplace relationship for several months, that company resources were used to facilitate this relationship, and that you received preferential treatment, including a fabricated job offer designed to circumvent ethics policies. The words hit like bullets. Elena's vision tunneled. We're not... She looked at Dominic. He was staring at the table, jaw clenched, absolutely still. Tell them that's not what happened. It doesn't matter what happened, Catherine said. What matters is what they're going to print. And unless we get ahead of this with a unified response, both of your careers are going to be destroyed by speculation. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. How did they get this information? We're still investigating the source, but someone with intimate knowledge of internal discussions talked. The article includes details about the operations position, the transfer timeline, even specific conversations that should have been privileged. Marcus spoke for the first time. Someone inside leaked this. Someone who wanted to cause maximum damage. Elena felt sick. Who would do that? That's what we're trying to determine. Catherine opened the folder, revealing printed emails, meeting notes, documentation. Elena recognized. In the meantime, we need to establish the facts. When did your relationship with Mr. Rayner begin? New Year's Eve, Elena said quietly. And prior to that? Nothing. We were professional. Appropriate. No fraternization? No inappropriate communication? No. Catherine's eyes were sharp, assessing. The article claims otherwise. It suggests the relationship has been ongoing for at least 6 months. That's a lie. Can you prove it? Elena's mind raced. How did you prove nothing happened? How did you document the absence of impropriety? Our email history is clean, Dominic said, speaking for the first time. His voice was flat, controlled. Our text messages before New Year's are all work-related. There's no evidence because there was nothing to hide. Until there was, Catherine countered. The job offer is legitimate, Marcus interrupted. I've been pushing for that position for months. Elena is qualified. This isn't favoritism. The optics say otherwise. CEO's assistant suddenly gets promoted after they start dating? That's a headline. We're not dating, Elena said. The words fell into silence. Dominic's head snapped up. His eyes met hers, sharp and unreadable. Excuse me, Catherine said. We're not together. We were, briefly, but we ended it. There's no relationship. There's nothing to disclose. When did it end? Last week. Catherine exchanged a look with Marcus. That's convenient timing. It's the truth. The truth is irrelevant if no one believes it. Catherine closed the folder. Here's the situation. The Tribune publishes tomorrow. Once that happens, every outlet in the city will pick it up. You'll be accused of ethics violations, nepotism, workplace misconduct. Rayner Industries' reputation takes a hit. Your personal reputations are destroyed unless... Unless what? Dominic asked. Unless we control the narrative. Issue a statement confirming the relationship, emphasizing that all protocols were followed, and demonstrate transparency before they can accuse us of hiding anything. But we're not in a relationship, Elena repeated. Then we have no defense, no explanation for why a CEO left a gala to visit his assistant on New Year's Eve. No reason for the job transfer discussions. Just speculation and insinuation and a story that writes itself. Elena's chest was tight. She couldn't breathe. This was a nightmare, and she couldn't wake up. There's another option, Marcus said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Elena resigns, immediately. We issue a statement saying she's pursuing other opportunities. The relationship angle dies because there's nothing to investigate if she's no longer an employee. Absolutely not, Dominic said. It eliminates the ethics violation. I said no. Dominic, be reasonable. I'm not letting her take the fall for my decisions. Then what do you suggest? Catherine's voice was sharp with impatience. Because right now we're looking at a scandal that damages everyone involved. I need a strategy that minimizes liability. Dominic's hands were flat on the table, knuckles white. Give me 24 hours. The story publishes in 18. Then I'll work fast. Catherine gathered her files, stood. Whatever you're planning, it better be bulletproof. Because if this blows up, the board will demand heads. Probably starting with yours. She left. Marcus followed, but not before squeezing Elena's shoulder, a gesture of support that somehow made everything worse. Then it was just Elena and Dominic in the small conference room, silence pressing down like water. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. Don't. This is my fault. I panicked, I pushed you away, and now this isn't your fault. Someone leaked privileged information. Someone wanted this to happen. Who? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Elena's hands twisted in her lap. Marcus was right. I should resign. If I'm gone, there's no story. No. Dominic. I said no. He finally looked at her, really looked, and the exhaustion in his eyes was devastating. You're not sacrificing your career because I couldn't keep my personal life separate from work. But it was separate until New Year's. And whose fault is that? The question came out harsh. He scrubbed a hand over his face. Sorry, I'm not. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Then whose fault is it? Mine, for thinking I could have this. For being selfish enough to pursue something I knew was complicated. You weren't selfish. You were honest. Honesty doesn't matter if it destroys everything. The defeat in his voice broke something in Elena's chest. This was Dominic Rayner, the man who built an empire through sheer force of will, who never backed down, who attacked every problem with ruthless efficiency. And she'd reduced him to this, exhausted, defensive, trapped. What are you going to do? She asked. Whatever it takes to protect you. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He stood. Elena stood too, suddenly desperate to fix this, to find some way forward that didn't end in mutual destruction. Dominic, wait. I need to make some calls. Can you hold down the office? The request was so normal, so perfectly professional, that it made her want to scream. They were on the edge of catastrophe, and he was asking her to manage his calendar. Of course, she said. He left without another word. Elena returned to her desk in a fog. The office hummed with normal activity, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, people moving through their days without knowing the bomb about to detonate. She tried to work. Couldn't focus. Every sound made her flinch. Every time someone walked past her desk, she expected them to know, to have already seen the article, to be judging her. At 2 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have stayed invisible. Elena stared at the message, ice flooding her veins. Another text followed immediately. Girls like you don't belong in his world. Tomorrow, everyone will see that. Her hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She tried to trace the number. Blocked. Tried to screenshot the messages. Her fingers fumbled, taking 3 attempts. Someone was doing this deliberately. Someone wanted her destroyed. Elena looked around the office with new eyes. Who hated her this much? Who had access to internal information and enough malice to leak it to press? Sarah from accounting walked past, gave her a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. James from legal was on his phone near the break room, voice low and urgent. Rebecca, Dominic's previous assistant who'd transferred to marketing and never quite gotten over it, was watching Elena from across the floor with an expression that might have been satisfaction. Elena's chest tightened. The enemy could be anyone. Everyone. She forwarded the screenshots to Dominic with shaking fingers, then sat at her desk, trying not to fall apart, while the office moved around her, oblivious. Dominic called her into his office at 4 p.m. She found him standing at his window, looking out at the city. His posture was rigid, controlled, but when he turned to face her, exhaustion had carved new lines around his eyes. I know who leaked the story, he said without preamble. Elena's breath stopped. Who? Rebecca Lansing. The name landed like a punch. Rebecca. His former assistant. The woman who'd trained Elena, who'd smiled while explaining Dominic's preferences, who'd transferred to marketing with what Elena had assumed was professional ambition. How do you know? Her email was on a CC list for one of the meetings with legal. She shouldn't have had access to those discussions. When IT checked her login history, she'd been accessing files she had no business seeing, including my personal calendar from New Year's Eve. Elena sank into the chair across from his desk. Why would she do this? Because I fired her. You didn't fire her. She transferred. I gave her the choice to transfer or be terminated for performance issues. She chose the transfer, but she's been resentful ever since. Dominic's jaw tightened. I didn't realize how resentful. So what happens now? Now we have evidence of a malicious leak by a terminated employee with a grudge. That changes the narrative. Does it? It helps, but it doesn't solve everything. He moved to his desk, sat heavily. The Tribune still has the story. They'll print it even if we discredit the source. Then we're still ruined. Not if we give them something better. Elena's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Dominic pulled out a document, slid it across the desk. It was a press release, already drafted, waiting for approval. Elena read it, then read it again, her heart sinking with each word. Reiner Industries CEO. Dominic Reiner and operations manager Elena Vale announced their engagement. The couple began dating in January following proper disclosure to human resources and legal. Miss Vale's recent promotion to head the newly created Efficiency Division was based on merit and approved by the board prior to the relationship beginning. The couple asked for privacy as they navigate this exciting new chapter. Engagement, Elena whispered. It's the only play that makes sense. It reframes everything, not a scandal, a love story, not ethics violations, a serious relationship between equals. But we're not engaged. We're not even together. I know. This is insane. This is strategic. Elena looked up at him, searching his face for, what? Regret? Desperation? She found only exhaustion and grim determination. You're asking me to lie to the entire world. I'm asking you to protect yourself. By faking an engagement to my boss? By controlling the narrative before it controls us. He leaned forward. Listen to me. If that article prints as is, your name gets dragged through tabloid hell. You become the assistant who slept her way to a promotion. Every future employer will Google you and find speculation about your ethics. Your career is over. And if we lie about being engaged, then you're a woman in a committed relationship who happened to work for the man she's marrying. Human interest story, not a scandal. Until we break up. Then what? Then we handle it quietly. Issue a statement about mutual respect and different paths. By then, you'll have been in the operations role long enough to prove your competence. The engagement becomes a footnote, not the story. Elena's hands were shaking. This is crazy. This is survival. You're asking me to pretend to marry you. I'm asking you to let me protect you the only way I know how. The rawness in his voice stopped her. This wasn't cold strategy. This was desperation dressed up as business logic. What do you get out of this? She asked quietly. I get to stop watching you suffer for my mistakes. That's not an answer. Dominic's control cracked slightly. I get to fix what I broke. I get to look at myself in the mirror without hating what I see. I get to know that even if you never forgive me, at least I protected you from the fallout of my selfishness. This isn't your fault. It is. I pursued you knowing the complications. I pushed when I should have backed off. I created this situation and now I'm asking you to help me contain it. Elena stared at the press release, the words blurred. How would this even work? She asked. We announced the engagement. You take the operations position immediately. Already approved, no special treatment needed. We make a few public appearances together, enough to sell it as real. Then in 6 months, maybe a year, we quietly end things and move on with our lives. While working at the same company. You'll report to Marcus, different floor, different projects. We can minimize interaction. This is the most insane plan I've ever heard. Do you have a better one? Elena didn't. That was the problem. She looked at Dominic, really looked. Saw the man who'd driven across the city on New Year's Eve because he couldn't stand another midnight alone. The man who'd been honest when honesty was terrifying. The man who was now offering to fake marry her to save her career even though she'd broken his heart less than a week ago. If I say yes, she said carefully, this is business. A temporary arrangement to manage a crisis. Not Not a real relationship? I understand. No feelings, no expectations. Agreed. And when it ends, we end it professionally. No drama. Yes. Elena's chest ached. This was wrong in every possible way. Dishonest, manipulative, exactly the kind of thing that would explode spectacularly if anyone discovered the truth. But the alternative was worse. Okay, she whispered. Okay? I'll do it. The engagement, the charade, all of it. Something flickered in Dominic's expression, relief or pain or some combination of both. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is self-preservation, not heroism. Still, thank you. He picked up his phone, made a call. Catherine, move forward with option 3. Yes, immediately. He hung up. Looked at Elena with an expression she couldn't read. What happens now? She asked. Now we sell it. Press release goes out in an hour. We'll need photos. Something that looks authentic. Can you smile convincingly for a camera? I don't know. Try. We need this to look real. A photographer appeared 30 minutes later. They staged it in Dominic's office. Him behind his desk, her standing beside him, his hand covering hers where it rested on his shoulder. The photographer kept asking them to look happier, more natural, like people actually in love. Elena's face hurt from forcing smiles. That's good, the photographer finally said. Got what we need. He left. Elena and Dominic stood in the empty office, the charade temporarily suspended. Are you okay? He asked quietly. No. Are you? No. Good. At least we're honest about something. The press release went live at 6 p.m. Elena's phone exploded. Texts from college friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Calls from her mother. 3 missed, each voicemail increasingly frantic. Messages from coworkers offering congratulations that felt hollow and suspicious. And one text from Rebecca Lansing. Congratulations. I'm sure it's very real. Elena stared at the message, fury rising through the numbness. Rebecca had done this, had systematically destroyed Elena's privacy, her reputation, her peace of mind. And for what? Revenge against Dominic for a firing that had been justified? She wanted to respond, to rage, to let Rebecca know exactly what her malice had cost. Instead, she blocked the number and tried to breathe through the panic attack building in her chest. Her phone rang. Her mother. Again. Elena answered. You're engaged? Her mother's voice was shrill with disbelief. To your boss? Elena Marie, what were you thinking? Hi, Mom. Don't hi, Mom, me. This is all over social media. My friends are calling. Your aunt shared the article. Everyone is talking about this. I know. When were you going to tell me? Or were you just going to let me find out from the internet like a stranger? Guilt twisted in Elena's stomach. It happened fast. How fast? You didn't even tell me you were dating someone. We kept it private. Private? Elena, this man is famous, rich, powerful. What does he want with you? The question hit like a slap. Excuse me? I'm just saying, you're a secretary. He's a CEO. People are going to wonder, I'm his assistant, and I'm taking a new position heading an operations division. Because you're sleeping with him. Because I'm qualified. Is that what you're telling yourself? Her mother's voice dripped skepticism. Sweetheart, I'm trying to protect you. Men like that don't marry women like us. They date us. They have fun. But when it's time to get serious, they marry someone from their world. Elena's throat burned. You don't know him. I know men, and I know you're setting yourself up to get hurt. I have to go. Elena, she hung up, stared at her phone, felt something crack inside her chest. Her mother was wrong. Had to be wrong. Except she wasn't entirely wrong, was she? Because this engagement was fake. A business arrangement. Dominic wasn't actually marrying her. He was protecting her through the most elaborate lie either of them had ever told. And when it ended, when the charade fell apart, everyone would say her mother had been right all along. Elena's apartment felt suffocating. She grabbed her keys, left, walked the freezing streets of Queens with no destination in mind. Just moving, just trying to outpace the thoughts chasing her. Her phone buzzed. Dominic. Where are you? Walking. It's 20 degrees. Come home. I don't have a home. I have an apartment I can barely afford in a neighborhood I hate. The response took longer. Come to mine. Please. We need to talk. We've talked enough. Elena. She stopped walking, stood on a street corner watching traffic blur past, breath clouding in front of her face. Going to Dominic's penthouse felt like crossing another line. This was supposed to be business, professional, temporary, but she was so tired of being alone. Send me the address. She arrived 40 minutes later, fingers numb from cold despite her gloves. The building was everything she'd expected: doorman, marble lobby, the kind of casual wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Dominic met her at his door, took one look at her and pulled her inside. You're freezing. I'm fine. You're not fine. Come here. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, guided her to a couch that probably cost more than her car, and disappeared into what she assumed was the kitchen. Elena looked around, floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering below. Art on the walls, real art, the kind with plaques. Everything clean and expensive and utterly devoid of personality. Dominic returned with 2 mugs. Tea. You need to warm up. Elena took it, wrapped her hands around the ceramic. Your place is nice. It's empty. It's minimalist. It's a showroom. I don't actually live here. I exist here. She understood that more than she wanted to. They sat in silence, drinking tea, not looking at each other. My mother called, Elena finally said. How'd that go? She thinks I'm an idiot. She's wrong. Is she? I'm fake engaged to my boss to avoid a scandal. That's pretty idiotic. It's survival. Same thing sometimes. Dominic set down his mug. Your mother doesn't know the full story. She knows enough. She knows I'm way out of my depth, that this, Elena gestured vaguely at the penthouse, isn't my world. It's not mine either. Yes, it is. You built it. I built a prison. Money and success and influence that mean nothing because I'm alone in it. Elena looked at him. Really looked. Saw the same exhaustion she felt, the same fear underneath the control. We're a mess, she said. Yes. This is never going to work. Probably not. So why are we doing it? Dominic was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough with honesty. Because I'd rather have you in my life as a fake fiancé than not have you at all. The confession hung between them. That's pathetic, Elena whispered. I know. We're both pathetic. Probably. She laughed, wet and broken. How did we get here? I asked you to stay awake on New Year's Eve. And I actually responded. Biggest mistake of your life? Maybe. She met his eyes. Ask me when this is over. Deal. They sat in his expensive empty penthouse, 2 people pretending to be in love while actually just terrified of being alone. And Elena wondered if this was rock bottom or if they still had further to fall. The Tribune article published at 6 a.m. Elena's phone woke her with the alert. She read it lying in her own bed. She'd gone home around midnight, too exhausted to stay awake, and felt her stomach drop. The headline, Power, Privilege, and Problematic Promotion, inside Dominic Rayner's relationship with his assistant. The article was brutal, clinical. It laid out every detail with surgical precision. The New Year's Eve disappearance, the job creation, the timeline that suggested months of secret relationship before public disclosure. It quoted anonymous sources saying Elena was unqualified for the operations role. It implied Dominic had a pattern of inappropriate workplace behavior. And then, buried in the final paragraphs, it mentioned the engagement announcement with barely disguised skepticism. The timing of yesterday's engagement announcement, mere hours before this story was set to publish, raises questions about damage control versus genuine commitment. Representatives for Rayner Industries declined to comment on whether the relationship is as serious as claimed or simply an attempt to reframe potential ethics violations as a love story. Elena read it twice, then a third time. Each pass made it worse. They'd failed. The engagement announcement hadn't killed the story. It had just added another layer of suspicion. Her phone rang. Dominic. Have you seen it? His voice was tight. Yes. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. I thought the engagement would work. You thought wrong. We both did. Silence. What do we do now? Elena asked. I don't know. Catherine is calling an emergency meeting. Can you get here by 8? I'll be there. She hung up, stared at her ceiling, and wondered how much worse this could possibly get. The answer came 3 hours later. Elena was sitting in the conference room with Dominic, Catherine, Marcus, and 2 board members she'd never met when Catherine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, went pale, and excused herself. When she returned, her expression was granite. "We have a problem," she said. Rebecca Lansing just filed a formal complaint with the EEOC claiming she was constructively dismissed to make room for Elena after Dominic began their affair. The room went silent. "That's a lie," Dominic said. "Probably, but she has documentation. Emails she claims show preferential treatment toward Elena going back 6 months. Performance reviews she alleges were fabricated to justify her transfer." "Those reviews were legitimate." "I'm sure they were, but we're now looking at a federal investigation into workplace discrimination and retaliation. And unless we can definitively prove, that your relationship with Elena began after Rebecca's transfer and after Elena's promotion was approved, this becomes a nightmare." One of the board members, stern woman, perfectly gray bob, leaned forward. "What's your recommendation?" "Full cooperation with the investigation, complete transparency, and Catherine hesitated. "Distance between Mr. Rayner and Miss Vale until this is resolved." "Define distance," Dominic said. "No contact outside of what's legally necessary. No public appearances together. Postpone any wedding plans indefinitely." "So we prove she's right. We prove this is a scandal by acting like it is. We prove we're taking it seriously, that we have nothing to hide." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. "What happens to me?" "You continue in your current role pending the investigation, but understand, if the EEOC finds evidence supporting Rebecca's claims, you'll be terminated, possibly with cause, which would eliminate severance. So I lose everything either way." "Not necessarily, if the investigation clears you. If." Elena laughed, harsh and broken. "Not when. If. I'm being realistic." "You're covering your ass." Elena stood. "This meeting is pointless. You've already decided I'm the liability. Easier to throw me overboard than defend me." "Elena." Dominic reached for her. She stepped back. "Don't. Just don't." She left the conference room, left the building, walked into the freezing January morning, and kept walking until her phone died and she couldn't count the missed calls anymore. She ended up at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, warming her hands around a cup she couldn't taste, watching people move through their normal lives while hers disintegrated. Her laptop was in her bag. She'd grabbed it reflexively on her way out. Elena opened it, stared at her email, and saw 300 unread messages, most from coworkers, some from press, a few from lawyers offering representation. She opened one at random. "Ms. Vale, I represent several women who have experienced similar situations with powerful men in corporate settings. If you're interested in discussing your options, including potential legal action against Mr. Rayner and Rayner Industries, please contact me at your earliest convenience." Elena stared at it. Legal action against Dominic. The thought made her sick. But also, there was a dark appeal to it. Scorched earth. If she was going down anyway, why not take everything with her? Her phone buzzed. It had enough battery for one more notification. A text from an unknown number. "You should have listened. Girls like you don't belong. Now everyone knows." Elena's hands shook. She knew that tone, that vindictive satisfaction. Rebecca. And suddenly everything crystallized into sharp, cold clarity. Rebecca wanted her destroyed. The press wanted a scandal. The board wanted distance. Her own mother thought she was delusional. Everyone wanted her to disappear, to apologize for existing, to accept that she'd reached too far, wanted too much, dared to believe she deserved something good. Elena was so tired of being small. She reopened her laptop, started typing an email to Dominic, to Catherine, to the board, to everyone who'd spent the past week treating her like collateral damage instead of a person. The email was blunt, honest. Every detail of what actually happened, New Year's Eve, the genuine feelings, the fear that drove her to end things, the fake engagement, all of it. She held nothing back. She wrote about Rebecca's harassment, about the threatening texts, about the systemic problem of women being punished for men's attraction to them. She wrote about being tired, of hiding, of apologizing, of making herself invisible so other people felt comfortable. And then she wrote the ending. "I'm done protecting everyone else. I'm done being the problem you solve by eliminating me. If loving Dominic Rayner, actually loving him, not faking it for PR, means I lose my career, then I lose it. But I lose it on my terms. Telling the truth, not hiding anymore. Elena Vale. Her finger hovered over send. This would destroy everything. Confirm the affair timeline. Admit to the fake engagement. Probably get her sued for breach of confidentiality. Definitely get her fired. But it would be honest. And she was so tired of lying. Elena hit send. Then she closed her laptop, finished her terrible coffee, and waited for the world to end. The email detonated in real time. Elena watched her inbox explode with replies. First 1, then 5, then 20 in the span of 3 minutes. Her phone, miraculously clinging to 2% battery, lit up with incoming calls she didn't answer. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too exposed, like the walls were closing in. She'd done it, actually done it, blown up her own life with surgical precision. Her laptop screen refreshed. New email. Subject line. Call me now. Dominic. Elena stared at it, finger hovering over the trackpad. Opening it meant confronting what she'd just done, meant facing the fallout, meant her laptop died. Battery finally gave out. The sudden darkness of the screen felt prophetic. Elena packed up, left the coffee shop, and started walking. No destination, just movement. The January cold bit through her coat, but she welcomed it. Physical sensation to anchor her while everything else spun out of control. She made it 2 blocks before a black town car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. Marcus. Get in, he said. I'm fine walking. Elena, get in the car. Something in his tone, not anger but urgency, made her comply. She slid into the back seat. Marcus was alone, driving himself, which was unusual enough to spike her anxiety. Where's Dominic? She asked. Damage control. Catherine is having a controlled meltdown. The board is demanding an emergency session, and you, he glanced at her in the rearview mirror, you just committed professional suicide and possibly saved us all. I don't understand. Your email, the one where you laid out everything, including Rebecca's harassment, the threatening texts, the timeline proving the relationship started after the Tribune got their information. I was just being honest. You were building a case, whether you meant to or not. Marcus turned a corner, headed toward Manhattan. Rebecca fucked up. She filed her EEOC complaint based on lies we can now definitively disprove. Your email, combined with IT's forensic evidence of her unauthorized access, paints a picture of targeted retaliation, not legitimate discrimination. Elena's head spun. So I'm not fired? Oh, you're probably still fired. But now you're fired as collateral damage in a corporate espionage case, not as the home-wrecking assistant everyone thinks you are. That's not much better. It's the difference between walking away with your reputation intact and being blacklisted from every corporate job in New York. I'll take it. The car pulled up to Rayner Industries. Elena's stomach dropped. I can't go in there. You have to. The board wants to hear your side directly. Marcus, I know you're scared. I know this is the last place you want to be, but if you run now, they control the narrative. You showed up in that email. Now show up in person. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to steady herself. Is Dominic in there? Yes. How angry is he? Marcus met her eyes in the mirror. He's not angry. He's terrified. There's a difference. They rode the elevator in silence. Elena caught her reflection in the polished doors, pale, exhausted, wearing yesterday's clothes because she'd been too distraught to change. She looked like exactly what she was. Someone who'd hit bottom and kept digging. The conference room was packed. Board members she'd never met. Catherine with her laptop open, expression thunderous. And Dominic standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes found hers the moment she walked in. Something passed between them. Relief, fear, recognition. Then he looked away, and Elena felt the absence like a physical blow. Ms. Vale. The board chairman, elderly, severe, the kind of man who'd built empires before Elena was born, gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat. Your email was illuminating, he continued, and deeply concerning. You've admitted to fabricating an engagement to manipulate press coverage. You've confessed to a romantic relationship with Mr. Rayner that regardless of timing, creates serious conflicts of interest. You've exposed internal legal strategies to multiple parties without authorization. I know. You understand this is grounds for immediate termination. Yes. And potential legal action for breach of confidentiality. Yes. The chairman leaned back. Why did you do it? The question hung in the air. Elena looked around the room, all these powerful people, waiting for her to explain why she'd self-destructed so spectacularly. Because I was tired of being small, she said quietly. Tired of protecting everyone else while my own life fell apart. Tired of being the problem that needed solving. So you decided to solve it by creating a bigger problem? I decided to tell the truth. Whatever consequences come from that, I'll accept them. But at least I'll accept them honestly. The chairman exchanged looks with the other board members. Catherine was typing furiously, probably documenting everything for legal. Mr. Rayner, the chairman said. Your response? Dominic turned from the window. His face was carefully blank, but Elena knew him well enough now to see the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion around his eyes. Elena did what I should have done from the beginning, he said. Been honest, transparent. I created this situation by trying to manage it instead of confronting it. If anyone should be terminated, it's me. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being accurate. I pursued a relationship with a subordinate. I created a job position that, while legitimate, had convenient timing. I approved a fake engagement to control media narrative. Those are my decisions. My consequences. So you're falling on your sword? One of the board members asked. I'm taking responsibility. How noble. The chairman's tone was dry. Unfortunately, nobility doesn't solve our PR nightmare. We have the Tribune questioning our ethics, an EEOC investigation into discrimination claims, and now internal emails admitting to corporate deception. This is a disaster. It was a disaster the moment Rebecca leaked privileged information, Marcus interjected. Everything since has been crisis management. Imperfect crisis management. But we didn't create the fire. We're just failing to put it out fast enough. Semantics. Facts. Marcus pulled up something on his tablet. IT finished their forensic analysis. Rebecca accessed confidential files over 40 times in the past 2 months. She copied emails, calendar entries, personnel records, all things she had no legitimate reason to view. Then she contacted the Tribune using a burner email account we've traced to her IP address. This wasn't a disgruntled employee with a legitimate grievance. This was corporate espionage. Can we prove it? We can prove the unauthorized access. The Tribune contact is circumstantial but compelling. Combined with the threatening text she sent Elena, which we've also traced, we have a clear pattern of harassment and retaliation. Elena's head snapped up. You traced the texts? Itty pulled them from your phone backup when you forwarded the screenshots to Dominic. The number is a prepaid phone purchased 3 blocks from Rebecca's apartment. So what does that mean? Catherine spoke for the first time. It means we have leverage. Rebecca filed a false EEOC complaint based on fabricated claims. She engaged in corporate espionage and employee harassment. We can bury her legally. Or, the chairman said slowly, we can use it. Everyone looked at him. Rebecca wants a settlement. That's what this has always been about. The leaked story, the EEOC complaint, the public pressure. She wants money to go away quietly. We're not paying her off, Dominic said flatly. We're not. But we can offer her a choice. Withdraw the EEOC complaint, sign an NDA, and disappear quietly. Or we prosecute her for every crime we can prove and make sure she never works in corporate America again. That's extortion. That's negotiation. She extorted us first by leaking confidential information. We're simply responding in kind. Elena watched this play out with growing horror. This was how power worked. Not through justice or truth, but through calculated leverage and mutually assured destruction. What about me? She asked. All eyes turned to her. What happens to me in this scenario? The chairman considered her. You're a complication. The relationship with Mr. Rayner, fake or real, creates ongoing ethics concerns. The operations position is tainted by association, and your email, while strategically useful, demonstrates questionable judgment. So I'm fired. Not necessarily. He glanced at Dominic. If Mr. Rayner were to recuse himself from any decisions regarding your employment, if you were to transfer to a completely separate division with no reporting relationship, if both of you were to maintain strict professional distance for a minimum of 12 months. No, Dominic interrupted. Excuse me? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not pretending Elena doesn't exist for a year to satisfy optics. Mr. Rayner, be reasonable. I've been reasonable. I've been strategic. I've played every angle you've asked me to play. And it's made everything worse. Dominic's voice was rising now, control finally fracturing. You want to fire Elena? Fine. But don't dress it up as protection or best practices. Just admit you're eliminating a PR problem. That's not what we're doing. It's exactly what you're doing. She's inconvenient. She's complicated. She's a reminder that I made decisions based on emotion instead of calculation, so you want her gone. The chairman's expression hardened. What we want is a company that doesn't implode from internal scandal. Your personal feelings are irrelevant. My personal feelings are the only thing that's been honest in this entire disaster. Silence fell like a hammer. I love her, Dominic said quietly. The engagement was fake, but the feelings aren't. And I'm done pretending otherwise. Elena's breath stopped. Every person in the room was staring at Dominic, but he was looking only at her. I know that's inconvenient, he continued. I know it's complicated. I know it violates a dozen policies and creates conflicts of interest. But it's true. And I'm done managing the truth like it's another asset to be leveraged. Dominic? Elena's voice came out broken. Let me finish. Please. He moved toward her, stopping a few feet away like he wasn't sure he had permission to get closer. I handled everything wrong, pushed when I should have waited, created solutions that made things worse, dragged you into a nightmare because I was too selfish to just leave you alone. I know that, and I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. I'm not apologizing. I'm being honest. I love you. I loved you at New Year's, and I loved you when you panicked and pushed me away, and I loved you when you sent that email blowing up both our lives. I don't know how to stop, and I'm done pretending I want to. Elena's eyes burned. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Because if they fire you, if they make you disappear to solve their PR problem, I need you to know it wasn't for nothing. What we had, what we could have had, it was real. Was? Is? Could be. If you'll let it. The room had gone completely silent. Elena was vaguely aware of board members exchanging glances, of Catherine typing frantically, of Marcus looking like he was trying not to smile. But all she could focus on was Dominic, standing in front of her with his heart laid bare in a conference room full of people who could destroy them both. You're an idiot, she whispered. I know. This is the worst possible time for a love confession. I know that too. We're probably both getting fired. Probably. And you're doing this anyway? Yes. Elena laughed, wet and broken and possibly slightly hysterical. I love you too. I've been terrified of it, fighting it, trying to logic my way out of it, but I do. I love you. And I hate that I've made everything so much worse by being too scared to just say it. You haven't made anything worse. I have. I panicked. I ended things. I created the fake engagement nightmare. I sent that email. I'm a disaster. You're human. There's a difference. Elena stood on shaking legs, crossed the distance between them, and kissed him in front of the entire board of directors because if they were getting fired anyway, they might as well make it count. Dominic's hands came up to frame her face, gentle and certain, like he'd been starving for this and could finally breathe again. The kiss was soft, honest, everything the past 2 weeks hadn't been. Someone cleared their throat aggressively. They broke apart. Elena's face was on fire. Dominic looked dazed. Well, the chairman said dryly, I suppose that settles the question of whether the relationship is genuine. I'm sorry, Elena started. Don't be. At least now we're dealing with facts instead of speculation. He stood, gathered his papers. Here's what's going to happen. Ms. Vale, you'll transfer to the operations position effective immediately. Mr. Rayner, you'll recuse yourself from any decisions regarding Ms. Vale's employment, compensation, or advancement. HR will document this relationship per standard disclosure protocols. And both of you will conduct yourselves with utmost professionalism while at work. which means no kissing in conference rooms. Are you saying, Dominic started, I'm saying we're not letting Rebecca Lansing dictate company policy through corporate espionage. We'll handle her separately. But you two, he looked between them with an expression that might have been exasperation or respect. You're adults. You disclose the relationship. You're following protocols. If you can actually make this work without creating further scandals, more power to you. Elena couldn't breathe. We're not fired? Not today, though God knows you've both earned it. He moved toward the door, other board members following. Catherine will draft new ethics guidelines. Marcus will oversee the transition. And you two will figure out how to date like normal people instead of corporate disaster magnets. They filed out, leaving only Dominic, Elena, Marcus, and Catherine. Catherine snapped her laptop shut. That was the most melodramatic board meeting I've witnessed in 20 years. You're welcome, Dominic said. Don't be smug. You're on thin ice. But her expression had softened slightly. The Rebecca situation needs to be handled carefully. She's cornered and dangerous. Expect her to escalate before she backs down. Let her. We have everything documented. Documentation doesn't stop crazy. Catherine grabbed her bag. I'll draft settlement terms. Generous enough to tempt her, harsh enough to remind her what happens if she refuses. Marcus, you're with me. Marcus squeezed Elena's shoulder on his way past. Welcome to operations. Try not to blow it up in the first week. Then they were alone in the conference room, the door clicking shut behind Catherine, silence rushing in to fill the space. Elena sat down heavily. What just happened? I think we survived. Dominic sat beside her, maintaining careful distance like he wasn't sure he was allowed to touch her anymore. Barely. Still counts. She laughed shakily. You told the entire board you love me. I did. That was insane. Probably. Definitely. Elena turned to look at him. Did you mean it? Every word? Even the part about loving me when I sent that catastrophic email? Especially that part. That email was the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do. It was self-destructive. It was honest. You chose truth over safety. That's not self-destructive. That's courage. Elena's throat tightened. I don't feel brave. You are, anyway. They sat in silence, the weight of the past 2 weeks settling over them like dust after an explosion. What happens now? Elena finally asked. Now you start your actual job. Not as my assistant, as the head of operations efficiency. I don't know how to do that. Yes, you do. You've been doing it informally for 2 years. Now you get credit for it. People are going to say I only got the position because we're together. Let them. Your work will speak for itself. And us? Dominic was quiet for a moment. What do you want the answer to be? Elena considered. The honest answer was terrifying. The honest answer meant risking everything all over again, meant trusting that this was real, that it could last, that she deserved it. I want to try, she said quietly. Actually try. Not as a PR strategy or a fake engagement, as two people who somehow fell in love in the middle of a corporate nightmare. That's what I want too. Even though it's going to be complicated, especially because it's complicated, easy things don't matter as much. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder, let herself be held for the first time since New Year's Eve. We're going to screw this up. Probably. We'll fight, have doubts, make mistakes. Almost certainly. But you still want to try? Elena. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I drove across Manhattan at midnight because I couldn't stand another year without you. I faked an engagement to protect your career. I just confessed my love in front of my board of directors. I'm all in. The question is whether you are. She was. The realization settled in her chest like coming home, terrifying and right in equal measure. I'm all in, she whispered. Good, because I'm not giving you up again. Possessive. Honest. They sat there, holding each other in an empty conference room, until Marcus knocked on the door and told them they needed to deal with Rebecca before she escalated further. Rebecca escalated. The call came at 11 p.m. Elena was at Dominic's penthouse. They'd gone there after work because her apartment felt too small and his felt too empty, and together they balanced into something manageable. She was curled on his absurdly expensive couch, laptop open, trying to understand her new job responsibilities while Dominic cooked something that smelled amazing in the kitchen. Domestic. Normal. Everything the past 2 weeks hadn't been. Then Marcus called. Rebecca gave an interview to the Tribune, he said without preamble. It goes live in the morning. Full tearful victim narrative. Claims she was sexually harassed by Dominic, that Elena was his side piece, that the company covered it up. Elena's stomach dropped. That's all lies. I know, but it's going to be front page. She's playing the sympathetic wronged woman angle hard. Dominic appeared from the kitchen, saw Elena's face, and immediately muted whatever he was cooking. What happened? Elena put the phone on speaker. Marcus, repeat that. Marcus did. Dominic's expression went dangerously calm. We have documentation disproving every claim, he said. Documentation doesn't matter if public opinion decides she's credible. And right now, woman claiming harassment versus powerful CEO, she's got the sympathetic angle, so we release our evidence. Show the unauthorized access, the harassment texts, the fabricated timeline, which makes us look defensive, like we're attacking a victim. She's not a victim. I know that, you know that, but the court of public opinion doesn't care about facts. They care about narrative, and her narrative is compelling. Elena's mind raced. What if we get ahead of it? Both men looked at her. What if we release a statement first, not defensive, just honest? Acknowledge that Rebecca worked here, that she was transferred, that she subsequently engaged in corporate espionage and is now making false claims. Present it as fact, not rebuttal. That could work, Marcus said slowly. But it needs to be airtight. No wiggle room, no ambiguity. I'll write it, Elena said. Elena, I know her better than anyone. I know what she's going to say, what angles she'll use. Let me draft something. Dominic looked uncertain. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Draft it. Send it to me by midnight. I'll run it past legal. If it works, we release at 6 a.m. before her interview goes live. He hung up. Elena opened a new document, stared at the blinking cursor. Her hands were shaking. You don't have to do this, Dominic said quietly. Yes, I do. She's doing this because of me, because I exist, because you chose me. I'm not hiding from that. This isn't your fault. I know, but it's my fight now. She started typing. The statement took 2 hours to write. Elena crafted every word carefully, balancing truth with legal defensibility. She outlined Rebecca's employment history, documented the performance issues that led to her transfer, detailed the unauthorized access to confidential files, listed the harassment texts with timestamps, and concluded with a simple statement. These allegations are false, and we have substantial evidence proving it. We will cooperate fully with any legitimate investigation. She sent it to Marcus at 11:47 p.m. His response came at 11:52. Legal approved. We go live at 6. Get some sleep. Elena closed her laptop, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Dominic pulled her close. You're amazing. I'm terrified. Same thing sometimes. They went to bed, but didn't sleep. Just lay there in the dark, holding each other, waiting for morning to bring whatever fresh disaster Rebecca had planned. At 5:55 a.m., their statement went live on Rainer Industries' official channels. At 6:03 a.m., the Tribune published Rebecca's interview. By 6:15 a.m., both were trending on social media. Elena watched it unfold on her phone, stomach churning. Rebecca's interview was exactly what Marcus predicted. Tearful, sympathetic, carefully crafted to paint her as the wronged woman destroyed by powerful men. But their statement was gaining traction too. Journalists were picking up on the documented evidence. People were questioning Rebecca's timeline. The conversation was shifting from corrupt CEO and mistress to potential corporate espionage and false accusations. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Elena's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? You bitch? Rebecca's voice was venomous. You think you've won? Elena's blood went cold. How did you get this number? I have all your numbers. I have everything, and I'm going to destroy you. By lying to the press? Good luck with that. By telling the truth. That you're a nobody who seduced her boss for a promotion. That you're exactly what everyone thinks you are. I don't care what people think. Liar. You care desperately. That's why you're so easy to hurt. Elena's hands clenched around the phone. What do you want, Rebecca? I want you gone. Out of that company. Out of his life. Back to whatever pathetic existence you crawled out of. Not happening? We'll see. I still have ammunition, things I haven't released yet. Things that will make that statement look like amateur hour. Then release them. Go ahead, do your worst. The challenge seemed to catch Rebecca off guard. You think you're brave? No, I think I'm done being scared of you. She hung up. Dominic was watching her, expression unreadable. What did she say? That she has more to release, more ammunition. She's bluffing. Maybe, Elena set down her phone. Or maybe she really does have something we don't know about. Either way, I meant what I said. I'm done being scared. Even if she releases something damaging? Even then. Because whatever she has, it can't be worse than the truth we've already told. We've admitted to everything. The relationship, the fake engagement, the mistakes. What's left for her to twist? Dominic pulled her close. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They went to work together, walked in side by side at 8 a.m. like they had every right to be there, because they did. People stared, whispered. Elena ignored them. She had a job to do. The operations division was smaller than she expected. Just her and 3 analysts who looked terrified to be reporting to the CEO's girlfriend. Elena spent the first hour assuring them she had no idea what she was doing and would need their help not to fail spectacularly. The honesty seemed to help. By noon, she was elbow-deep in efficiency reports, identifying bottlenecks in supply chain logistics, and feeling the first sparks of genuine excitement about work she'd felt in years. This was good. This was right. At 2 p.m., Catherine called an emergency meeting. Elena walked into the conference room to find Dominic, Marcus, Catherine, and the board chairman already there. Rebecca accepted our settlement terms, Catherine said without preamble. Elena's knees went weak. What? Full withdrawal of the EEOC complaint. Signed NDA. Agreement to issue a public statement retracting her allegations, in exchange for a severance package and a non-disparagement clause that protects her reputation. She just gave up? She ran out of options. The evidence against her is overwhelming. Her interview didn't generate the sympathy she expected. Too many people calling out inconsistencies. She could keep fighting and face criminal charges, or take the settlement and disappear quietly. She chose survival. Elena sat down before her legs gave out. It's over? Not entirely. The damage to both your reputations will take time to repair. But legally, yes, it's over. The relief was so overwhelming, Elena almost couldn't process it. After weeks of escalating disaster, after destroying and rebuilding and nearly losing everything, it was just over? What happens now? She asked. The chairman spoke. Now you both do your jobs. Prove this wasn't a scandal waiting to happen. Show us that the drama was worth it. No pressure, Dominic muttered. You brought this on yourselves. Now you get to live with it. But the chairman's expression had softened slightly. For what it's worth, I've been in this business 40 years. I've seen a lot of relationships implode under pressure. Yours might actually survive. Don't waste it. He left. Catherine and Marcus followed, Marcus squeezing both their shoulders on his way past. Then it was just Elena and Dominic, alone in the conference room for the second time in as many weeks. We did it, Elena said quietly. We survived. Same thing. Not quite. Surviving is getting through. We actually won. Elena laughed, surprised and genuine. I guess we did. Dominic pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. I love you. I know. You announced it to the entire board. I'd do it again. Please don't. I don't think my heart can take more corporate drama. Deal. From now on, only regular relationship drama. What's regular relationship drama? I don't know. Arguing about whose turn it is to do dishes? Disagreeing about what to watch on Netflix? Sounds boring. Sounds perfect. Elena kissed him, soft and certain, tasting like relief and promise and all the tomorrows they'd almost lost. Let's go home, she said. Your place or mine? Ours. The word hung between them, loaded with implication, with commitment, with the terrifying, beautiful possibility of actually building something together. Ours, Dominic repeated. I like that. They left Rayner Industries hand in hand, walking past coworkers who stared and whispered, past the security desk where the guard nodded respectfully, past the lobby where everything had almost fallen apart. Outside, the city was bright with February sun, cold but clear. A new beginning disguised as just another Wednesday. Elena squeezed Dominic's hand. What now? Now we figure it out, together. What if we screw it up? Then we screw it up together too. She could live with that. They could live with that. And for the first time in weeks, maybe years, Elena wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready for it. 3 months later, Elena stood in her new office, actual office, with a door and a window and her name on a placard that still felt surreal, and stared at the efficiency report that didn't make sense. The numbers were clean, too clean. 6 departments showing identical improvement metrics down to the decimal point. Statistical impossibility masquerading as success. Someone was cooking the books. She'd been in this position for 12 weeks. 12 weeks of proving herself, of working 16-hour days to demonstrate she'd earned this role through competence, not pillow talk. 12 weeks of ignoring whispers and side eyes and the occasional anonymous email suggesting she was still just the assistant who got lucky. And now this. Elena printed the report, grabbed her tablet, and headed for Marcus's office. Not Dominic's. Never Dominic's. They'd been meticulous about maintaining professional separation, different floors, different projects, communication through proper channels only. At work, they were colleagues who happened to be dating. Nothing more. It was exhausting. But it was necessary. Marcus looked up when she knocked. Please tell me you're here with good news. I'm here with a problem. She closed the door, spread the report across his desk. These metrics. Department heads are reporting improvements that are statistically identical across completely different operational contexts. Marcus scanned the numbers, frown deepening. That's not possible. I know. Which means either we've discovered a universal efficiency solution that defies every principle of organizational management, or someone's falsifying data. Who? I don't know yet. But the reports all route through the same senior analyst before reaching me, James Kellerman. Marcus's expression went carefully neutral. James has been with the company for 8 years. He's got a spotless record. He also has access to every departmental system and the technical skill to manipulate data without leaving obvious traces. You're accusing him based on access and opportunity? I'm raising a red flag based on impossible numbers. What we do with that information is up to you. Marcus leaned back, studying her. You know what happens if you're wrong? I get accused of incompetence, paranoia, seeing conspiracies where there's just coincidence. And if you're right, then someone's been lying to us for months and we need to know why. He was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I'll have IT run a quiet audit on James's system access. But Elena, if this blows up, you're exposed. You're still new in this role. People are watching for you to fail. I know, but I'm more afraid of being the person who sees something wrong and says nothing. Marcus smiled slightly. You've changed. What do you mean? 3 months ago, you would have buried this. Convinced yourself you were wrong, protected yourself over the truth. Elena considered that. He wasn't wrong. The old Elena, the one who'd hidden in her assistant role for 2 years, would have rationalized the numbers away. Stayed small. Stayed safe. I guess I have changed, she said quietly. Good. The company needs more people willing to ask hard questions. He stood. I'll look into this, quietly. In the meantime, keep doing your job. And Elena, trust your instincts. They've been right more often than not. She left his office feeling both validated and terrified. Because if she was right, she was about to create another crisis. And if she was wrong, she'd just damaged her credibility beyond repair. The audit results came back 48 hours later. Marcus called her to his office at 7 p.m. on a Friday, which immediately spiked her anxiety. Catherine was already there. So was the head of IT, a woman named Sarah Chen, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. You were right, Marcus said without preamble. James has been systematically altering efficiency reports for the past 4 months. Elena's stomach dropped. Why? Performance bonuses. Department heads get quarterly bonuses based on improvement metrics. James was inflating the numbers to ensure certain departments hit their targets. Which departments? His brother runs logistics. His college roommate runs supply chain. His girlfriend works in procurement. All three departments showed miraculous improvements that triggered substantial bonus payouts. Jesus. Elena sat down heavily. How much? Combined? Nearly 200,000 in fraudulent bonuses over 4 months. The number made her dizzy. This wasn't a small mistake. This was systematic fraud. What happens now? She asked. Catherine spoke for the first time. Now we terminate James, claw back the bonuses, and report the fraud to authorities. We'll also need to audit all efficiency metrics for the past year to determine the scope of the falsification. That's my entire baseline data set, Elena said. Everything I've been using to measure progress, it's all potentially contaminated. I know, which means you start over. Clean slate, new metrics, untainted data. That's months of work. Yes, Elena looked around the room. And people are going to say I fabricated this to cover up my own incompetence, that I'm blaming James for my failure to produce real results. Probably, Marcus said. But the forensic evidence is airtight. IT can prove every alteration, every unauthorized access. You found legitimate fraud. That's not failure. That's exactly what we hired you to do. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that truth would be enough. But she'd learned better. The news broke internally on Monday. James was escorted out by security at 9 a.m. By 9:30, the entire company knew. By noon, the whispers had started. Elena heard them in the break room, in the hallways, in the carefully averted eyes when she walked past. She's covering for her own incompetence. Convenient scapegoat. Of course she accuses someone else when her metrics don't pan out. Sarah from accounting, who'd gossiped about Elena's relationship with Dominic months ago, cornered her by the elevator. So you just destroyed James's career to save your own? Sarah's tone was casual venom. I reported fraudulent data. What happened after that was HR's decision. Sure it was. Must be nice having the CEO as your boyfriend. Really streamlines the retaliation process. Elena's hands clenched. I haven't spoken to Dominic about this. At all. It went through Marcus and legal. Proper channels. Whatever helps you sleep at night. The elevator arrived. Elena stepped in, pressed her floor button, watched Sarah's smug expression disappear as the doors closed. She made it to her office before the shaking started. This was what she'd feared. Every accusation she'd dreaded since taking this position crystallizing into reality. People assuming her success was manufactured, her failures someone else's fault, her entire career a byproduct of sleeping with the right person. Her phone buzzed. Dominic. I heard. You okay? No. Can I see you? Not at work. We agreed. After work then. My place. Please. Elena stared at the message. They'd been so careful about boundaries. No preferential treatment. No public displays. No mixing professional and personal. But she was drowning, and he was offering a lifeline. Okay. She survived the rest of the day through sheer stubbornness, focused on building new audit protocols, on establishing clean baseline metrics, on doing the job she'd been hired to do, regardless of whether anyone believed she was qualified. At 6 p.m., she packed up and headed for Dominic's penthouse. He opened the door before she could knock, pulled her inside, wrapped her in his arms without asking permission. Elena broke. The tears came hard and ugly, weeks of pressure finally rupturing. She sobbed into his shoulder while he held her, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances she couldn't quite hear over the sound of her own gasping breaths. When she finally calmed enough to speak, her voice came out wrecked. Everyone thinks I'm using you. I know. They think the fraud investigation is fake, that I'm covering up my own incompetence. The evidence proves otherwise. Evidence doesn't matter if no one believes it. Dominic pulled back enough to look at her face. His thumb wiped away tears she hadn't realized were still falling. You're right. It doesn't. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Keep working? Hope eventually results speak louder than gossip? That's a plan. Not necessarily a good one, but it's something. Elena laughed wetly. You're terrible at pep talks. I'm being honest. This is going to be hard. Harder than it should be because people will always question your credentials. But you're capable of this work. I've seen it. Marcus has seen it. Eventually, everyone else will too. And if they don't, then they're idiots. And you'll have built something incredible despite them. She wanted to believe him. wanted to trust that competence would eventually overcome suspicion, but doubt had carved deep roots in her chest over 2 years of being invisible, and 3 months wasn't enough time to dig them all out. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. Not just of failing, of proving everyone right, that I was only valuable as your assistant, that I can't actually do this." Dominic's hands framed her face, gentle but firm. "Listen to me. You found systematic fraud that 3 levels of management missed. You built audit protocols that IT is already implementing company-wide. You've identified efficiency improvements in supply chain logistics that are saving us millions. In 3 months, that's not luck. That's not nepotism. That's skill. People don't see it that way. Some people never will. Fuck them. Focus on the ones who do." Elena closed her eyes. Let his certainty anchor her. "When did you get so wise?" "When I started dating someone who refuses to let me get away with bullshit." She smiled despite everything. "Fair." They ordered takeout, ate it on his couch, talked about nothing important until Elena felt almost human again. Around 10 p.m., she started gathering her things to leave. "Stay," Dominic said quietly. "I have work tomorrow." "So do I. Stay anyway." Elena looked at him. They'd been dating for 3 months, but living separately, maintaining the fiction of independence even though most nights ended with one of them at the other's place anyway. "Okay," she said. She stayed. The fraud investigation took 6 weeks to fully resolve. James was prosecuted. The falsified bonuses were clawed back. Elena rebuilt her entire efficiency framework from scratch, implementing new verification systems that made future manipulation nearly impossible. The work was brutal, but it was also clarifying. Every night she went home exhausted, but certain she'd earned it. Every metric she published came with documentation 3 people deep had verified. Every improvement she reported was backed by evidence that could withstand scrutiny. Slowly, painfully slowly, people stopped questioning her credentials quite so loudly. By month 5, her division was running smoothly enough that Elena could occasionally leave before 7 p.m., which was how she found herself with an actual Saturday off for the first time since taking the position. Dominic had plans. "We're going somewhere," he announced Friday night. "Where?" "It's a surprise." "I hate surprises." "You'll like this one." Elena was skeptical, but Saturday morning she got in his car and let him drive out of the city without demanding answers. They ended up at a small town in upstate New York, the kind of place that had one main street and everybody knew everybody. Dominic parked in front of a renovated Victorian house with a discreet sign, "Rayner Family Estate." Elena's heart kicked. "What is this?" "Family dinner. They've been asking to meet you for months. I thought it was time." "You thought?" "Dominic, I'm not prepared. You're fine exactly as you are." "I'm wearing jeans. So is everyone else." "Elena." He took her hand. "They're not going to judge you. They just want to know the person I've been talking about nonstop for half a year." "You talk about me?" "Constantly. It's embarrassing." Despite her panic, Elena smiled. "Okay, let's do this before I lose my nerve." The house was chaos. Elena had known intellectually that Dominic came from a large family. She hadn't anticipated what that actually meant in practice. 3 siblings, 4 nieces and nephews, 2 dogs, and parents who seemed to communicate primarily through affectionate yelling. His mother, Margaret, answered the door and immediately pulled Elena into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and home. "Finally," she said, "I was starting to think you were fictional." "Mom, you're crushing her," Dominic said. "She'll survive. Come in. Everyone's dying to meet you." The next 2 hours were a blur of names Elena immediately forgot. Stories about Dominic's childhood that he tried unsuccessfully to suppress, and more food than any reasonable gathering required. Elena kept waiting for the judgment, the questions about her background, her credentials, what exactly she thought she was doing dating their successful CEO's son. Instead, Dominic's sister asked about her efficiency protocols. His father wanted to hear about the fraud investigation. His youngest niece demanded Elena settle a dispute about whether penguins could fly. They treated her like she belonged there, like the fact that she loved Dominic was qualification enough. After dinner, Margaret cornered Elena in the kitchen while everyone else was distracted by board games in the living room. "He's different with you," she said without preamble. "Different how?" "Lighter. Dominic's always been intense. driven, built that company through sheer force of will. But he's never been happy. Not really. Not until you. Elena's throat tightened. I don't know if I make him happy. I think I mostly make him stressed. Margaret laughed. That's love, sweetheart. If it's not a little bit terrifying, it's not worth having. That's not very comforting. Not supposed to be comforting. Supposed to be true. She squeezed Elena's hand. You're good for him. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. They drove back to the city in comfortable silence. Elena was exhausted, but in a good way, the kind of tired that came from being fully present instead of performing. Your family is overwhelming, she finally said. I know, sorry. I love them. Dominic glanced at her, surprised. Yeah? Yeah, they're loud and chaotic, and your sister definitely told me an embarrassing story about you peeing yourself in 3rd grade. She swore she'd never tell anyone that. But they're real, genuine, they actually like each other. You say that like it's unusual. Elena was quiet. Her own family was small, fractured, held together by obligation rather than affection. The idea of people choosing to spend time together, choosing to care loudly and unapologetically, it was foreign. It is for me, she admitted. My family doesn't really do togetherness. We do distance and resentment and annual phone calls where everyone pretends everything's fine. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm starting to think family isn't just who you're born to, it's who chooses you. Dominic's hand found hers, threaded their fingers together. They chose you pretty enthusiastically. Your mom made me promise to come to Easter. You don't have to. I want to, if that's okay. More than okay. They drove the rest of the way home. And it was home now, Elena realized. Not his place or her place, but the penthouse they'd been slowly merging into shared space. Her books on his shelves, his coffee in her mug, their life tangling together in ways that felt inevitable. 7 months in, Elena had proven herself enough that the whispers mostly stopped. Her division was running efficiently, her metrics were clean, her recommendations were being implemented across the company with measurable results. She was good at this job, not because of who she was dating, because she was actually genuinely skilled. The realization settled in her chest like sunlight. On a Tuesday in August, unremarkable, ordinary, just another workday, Marcus called her into his office. The board wants to expand your division, he said, double the team size, give you oversight on international operations efficiency. It's a significant promotion. Elena's heart raced. Why? Because you've earned it. Because the work you're doing is valuable. Because we'd be idiots not to give you the resources to do more of it. People are going to say, let them. Your results speak for themselves. He slid a document across the desk. This is the formal offer. Salary increase, expanded authority, seat at senior leadership meetings. You don't have to decide now. Take some time. Think about it. Elena looked at the offer. The numbers were staggering. The scope was everything she'd never let herself imagine wanting. I don't need time, she said. I accept. Marcus smiled. Good. Welcome to senior leadership. Try not to find any more fraud scandals in your first month. No promises. That night, Elena told Dominic about the promotion over dinner they'd cooked together, a domestic ritual they'd fallen into somewhere between month 3 and month 7. I'm proud of you, he said simply. It feels surreal. 7 months ago, I was your assistant. Now I'm senior leadership. 7 months ago, you were underutilized. Now you're appropriately utilized. There's a difference. Elena set down her fork. Do you ever regret it? New Year's Eve. Everything that happened after. No, do you? She thought about it, honestly thought about it. The scandal, the fear, the career implosion that had almost destroyed them both. No, she said. It was terrifying. But it was also the first time I chose something for myself instead of choosing safety. I don't regret that. Even the fake engagement? Even that. It was a disaster, but it taught me I could survive disasters. Dominic reached across the table, took her hand. I love you. I know. You told the board of directors, remember? I'd do it again. Please don't. I've hit my lifetime quota for corporate drama. He laughed, and Elena thought about how far they'd traveled from that first midnight, how much they'd survived, how much they'd built. What are you thinking? Dominic asked. I'm thinking I want to move in here, officially, not just leave my things scattered around, but actually combine our lives. You already live here. I have an apartment in Queens I'm still paying rent on because I'm terrified of commitment. And now? Now I'm still terrified. But I'm doing it anyway. When? Now, tonight. I'll give notice tomorrow, move my stuff this weekend. Dominic stood, pulled her up, kissed her with a certainty that still made her heart race. Okay. Okay? That's it. Just okay. You want to live together? We live together. No drama, no grand gesture, just us building something real. Elena kissed him back, tasting promise and possibility and all the tomorrows she'd been too scared to imagine. Just us, she agreed. The year turned. Another New Year's Eve. But this one was different. Elena stood in Dominic's, their penthouse, watching the city prepare to celebrate. No cartoon penguins, no cheap wine, no loneliness pressing against her eardrums like water. Instead, noise. Chaos. Dominic's family had taken over the space. Margaret in the kitchen, his siblings arguing about board game rules, nieces and nephews running around like feral cats. Home. You look happy, Dominic said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I am happy. It's weird. Get used to it. Elena turned in his arms. Thank you. For what? For texting me that night. For being honest when honesty was terrifying. For driving across the city at midnight because you were tired of being alone. Thank you for responding, for letting me in, for being brave enough to try. The countdown started outside. 10 seconds to midnight, to another year, to whatever came next. What do you want for this year? Elena asked. This. More of this. You, me, chaos, family, everything we've built. That's it? That's everything. 5 seconds. Elena thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Invisible. Afraid. Convinced she didn't deserve good things. 3 seconds. She thought about the woman she was now. Senior leadership. Living with the man she loved. Part of a family that had chosen her. 1 second. I love you, she said. Midnight exploded across the city. Fireworks and noise and celebration. Dominic kissed her. Soft and certain, a promise renewed. I love you too. Around them, his family cheered and hugged and made too much noise. Margaret was crying. His father was opening champagne. The kids were demanding to stay up even later. Elena let herself be pulled into the celebration. Let herself belong. Let herself finally believe that good things could last. Later, much later, after everyone had left and they were cleaning up the considerable wreckage of hosting 8 people in a space designed for 1, Dominic pulled something from his pocket, a small box. Elena's breath stopped. This isn't the fake one, he said. This is real, if you want it. He opened the box. A simple ring. Elegant. Perfect. I'm not great at speeches. I proved that pretty definitively in front of the board, but I know I want to build a life with you. Not because it's strategic or because it solves a PR problem, because I can't imagine doing it with anyone else. Elena's hands were shaking. Are you asking? I'm asking if you'll marry me. Actually marry me. Not for headlines or damage control. Just because we love each other and want to make it official. The old Elena would have panicked, would have cataloged all the ways this could fail, all the reasons to say no, all the safety in staying uncommitted. The new Elena, the one who'd survived scandal and fraud investigations and corporate chaos, knew better. Yes, she said, I'll marry you. Dominic slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. Kissed her like they had all the time in the world and no time at all. We're going to screw this up sometimes, Elena said against his mouth. Definitely. We'll fight, disagree, drive each other crazy. Probably. But we'll figure it out? We always do. Elena pulled back to look at him. Really look. This man who'd driven across a city at midnight because he couldn't stand another year alone. Who'd confessed his love to a boardroom full of executives. Who'd chosen her over and over when easier options existed. I'm all in, she said. I know. You've been all in since you responded to that first text. So have you. Yes. They stood in their living room, surrounded by the evidence of celebration, wearing exhaustion and happiness in equal measure. Outside, the city was still celebrating. Inside, Two people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos were choosing to keep choosing each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. It wasn't what either of them had planned. But it was real. And real was better than safe. Real was worth fighting for. Real was home. 6 months later, they got married. Not a society wedding, not a PR event, just family and friends in Margaret's garden, vows spoken honestly, promises made without calculation. Elena wore a simple dress. Dominic cried during his vows. Marcus was best man and spent the entire ceremony looking smug about having called it from the beginning. When the officiant pronounced them married, when Dominic kissed her in front of everyone who mattered, Elena thought about the woman she'd been 18 months ago. Alone in a queen's apartment, invisible, convinced she wasn't worth noticing. That woman wouldn't recognize who Elena had become. Senior leader, wife, part of a family that chose her loudly and unapologetically. Someone who'd learned that being scared and being brave weren't opposites. That wanting things didn't guarantee they'd be taken away. That good things could last if you were willing to fight for them. At the reception, during the first dance, Dominic pulled her close. "Any regrets?" he asked. Elena thought about everything. The scandal, the fear, the career that had almost imploded, the fraud investigation, and the whispers, and the 1,000 small battles to prove she deserved to be there. "Not one," she said. "Not even the fake engagement disaster? Not even that. It taught me I could survive disasters." We both did. They swayed to music Elena couldn't quite hear over the sound of her own heart, surrounded by people who'd watched them nearly destroy each other and come out stronger. "What now?" Dominic asked. "Now we live. Build a life. Figure out the next crisis when it comes. Optimistic. Realistic. We're both disasters. There will be more drama. Probably. But we'll handle it. Together." Elena rested her head against his chest, let the certainty of his heartbeat anchor her. "I love you. I know. You married me. That was a pretty strong hint." She laughed against his shoulder and thought about midnight kisses and terrible decisions and the terrifying freefall of wanting someone who could destroy you. This was the opposite of destruction. This was building something real from the wreckage of everything they'd almost lost. This was home. Years later, when people asked how they met, Elena would tell them the truth. Her boss texted her at 10:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve because he was lonely, and she was too. They fell for each other in the middle of a corporate nightmare. They survived scandal and fraud and the kind of public humiliation that should have destroyed them both. And somehow, against all odds and every reasonable expectation, they built something that lasted. Not because it was easy, because it was worth it. On another New Year's Eve, this one 3 years after the first, Elena stood in the same penthouse where she'd once been too terrified to imagine a future. Now the space was different. Photos on the walls, toys scattered from visiting nieces and nephews, evidence of a life fully lived. Dominic wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking about the woman I was, the one sitting alone in Queens, convinced nothing would ever change. And I'm glad I was wrong." Outside, the city prepared to count down. Another midnight, another year, another chance to keep building. But Elena wasn't watching the clock. She was watching their reflection in the window. Two people who'd chosen each other in the middle of chaos and kept choosing each other every day since. That was the real story. Not the scandal or the drama or the corporate nightmare. Just two lonely people who found each other at exactly the right midnight and refused to let go. The countdown began. 10. Elena thought about invisible assistants and cartoon penguins. 9. About cheap wine and terrible rom-coms. 8. About a text message that changed everything. 7. About being brave enough to want things. 6. About surviving disasters. 5. About building home from wreckage. 4. About family that chooses you. 3. About love that fights back. 2. About midnight kisses that last. 1. The city exploded with celebration. Dominic turned her in his arms, kissed her like he had that first midnight, like he would every midnight after. "Happy New Year," he murmured against her lips. "Happy New Year." And somewhere in Queens, in a small apartment Elena no longer lived in, Another lonely person was probably sitting alone, wondering if anything would ever change. Elena hoped they'd be brave enough to answer their phone when it rang. Hoped they'd take the terrifying leap into uncertainty. Hoped they'd learn what she'd learned, that the best things in life were the ones that scared you most, that safety was overrated, that wanting things wasn't weakness, that you could survive disasters and come out stronger, that home wasn't a place. It was choosing someone every day and having them choose you back. Elena pulled Dominic closer, tasting promise and possibility and all the tomorrows they'd keep building together. This was her life. Messy, complicated, absolutely nothing like she'd planned, and perfect exactly as it was. The fireworks continued outside, painting the sky in brilliant color. Inside, two people who'd found each other in the middle of a corporate nightmare stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching their city celebrate another year, another chance, another midnight. And Elena, who'd once been invisible, who'd convinced herself she didn't deserve good things, who'd spent 2 years making herself small, finally understood what it meant to take up space, to want things loudly, to fight for what mattered, to love without apology, to live. She'd started the journey alone in cartoon penguin pajamas, halfway through a bottle of cheap wine, convinced nothing would ever change. She'd been wrong. Everything changed, and it started with a single text at 10:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Still awake? 2 words that became a conversation that became a relationship that became a life. The best life Elena could have imagined, and some she never dared to. That was the real magic of midnight, not the kiss or the countdown or the fireworks. It was the possibility that everything could change if you were brave enough to let it. Elena had been brave, and she'd never been alone again.